and say, look, we can just ease our lap times down by a tiny bit, and that'll save us the stop. In general, that's not a good plan, as I've said, but it could lead you to the opportunity where you can play fuel economy as your trump card. But it is still a fascinating battle. 2 hours and 50 minutes of the race have elapsed. We're 10 minutes away from half distance, therefore. I was planning or scheduling about 116 laps at half distance. We're currently on the 111th, so still no safety car. And still this gap remaining constant, 16 seconds between Lapierre and Treluet first to second.
Graham Goodwin is over in the press room from dailysportscar.com. Still over half of the race to go here, Graham.
Yeah, amazing, isn't it? It almost feels like we're close to the end. Such has been the pace here, but 3 hours and 9 minutes it is to go. Mark Lieb still pushing on. He's responding to the threat from behind that is Jimmy Bruni. 23 seconds, the gap that he has over the 51 Ferrari, but Mark's just put in the fastest lap of the 77 Porsches race so far, 141.499, plays at 141.698. Jimmy's going to have to do better than that if he's going to pull back that 22-second deficit. No, it's fast and furious stuff, isn't it? We've had another pit stop from a significant P2 runner. James Ross has brought in the 32 car to hand it over to Vittorio Liuzzi, so no Kevin Weeder yet aboard the 32 car. He's rejoined in third position. Tor Graves leads the class. Jacques Nicolet aboard 24, Liuzzi in third, and Luis Perez Compang took full advantage, by the way, of that early spurt from Andy L by retaking the position from the Star Wars car.
Okay, Graham, thank you.
Yeah, which is that Star Wars car is now just 4 seconds behind the PCOM car in 5th place in LMP2, in 12th place overall in the race positions, as the Oak Pescarolo with its Honda engine still in the pit lane, or in its garage I should say, with the engine cover off, that car having come into the pits at 1:38 in the R2, so it's been there now for some 20 minutes, not quite 20 minutes, sorry, it's 14 minutes, isn't it? That car which Takuma Sato brought in, and which has got an optimistic Bertrand Baguette now sitting at the wheel.
An optimistic Bertrand Baguette. I like it.
Yeah, that's what they're pouring fluid into the car, and at the moment, Baguette sandwiched between the end of the LMP2 field and the top of the GT Pro field, but he's not going to be there for much longer.
Sorry, say again, Paul?
There's oil going into that Oak Pescarolo. So, what was that? It's gearbox oil, and there's still a lot of work going onto it. So, losing ground all the time then, the number 15 car. Already down to 18th place and last of the P1 runners.
I think we've just about to see the GT Pro leader into there. No, sorry, it's the 88 car. I misidentified that one. But can't be long before we see.
Just back from your stint, it's been a good performance so far for the Lotus.
Yeah, we're doing really well. I mean, we rolled the dice a little bit and we tried to do a double stint, but the tyres went off too much. I think I lost a little bit more than if we changed the tyres, but it wasn't too bad. The car's behaving itself, so it's all right.
How is it out on track?
Pardon?
How is it out on track? It looks like there's a lot of debris there. There's a lot
of marbles, a lot of tyre rubber everywhere. If you go offline a tiniest bit, the tyre picks up these marbles and you lose quite a lot of time. So there's a big emphasis on staying on the racing line. It's quite difficult in the traffic because if you get those marbles when you're passing a GT car, it's very difficult to clean a tyre. So yeah, it's pretty dirty out there.
Thank you.
Louise Beckett with James Rossiter down there in the pit lane. Thanks, Louise. And there is his car, the number 32. So P2 being led by the ADR Delta, with the Oak Racing car of Jacques Nicolet in second position, and everybody else is chasing them down at the moment. It's basically how it is. It could well concertina back together in this face. Luis Perez Companc is in. We've got Vidantonio. See, Vidantonio Liuzzi in the 32 Lotus has got a real chance here to make hay while the sun shines, as has Ryan Diel after that spin. He's right on the end of the tail. Is he on the tail end of the lead lap in P2? I think he is just. But Torgraves, Jacques Nicolet, both very much gentleman drivers, no disrespect to them. Antonio Liuzzi, very much not a gentleman driver. I can hear Graham Goodwin talking to somebody in the press room there, so we'll let him do that at the moment. Now Michelin shod JWA Porsche coming through turn number 1. That car being on the Michelins for the first time. Lots of interest in the Japanese drivers, of which there are 5 in this race. Still trying to sort of decipher what's going on here and who's in the best position. That engine you can hear is the 25 ADR Delta. Ooh, just a little bit of too much curb there. Coming round turn number 13, and another big right front lock-up going into the Dunlop corner, the Dunlop chicane area for, that's Kobayashi, isn't it, who is driving that car at the moment. He should know this track pretty well, GT300 driver. Graham Goodwin, can you hear us in the press room?
I can hear you perfectly, John. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can now.
We're
going to go down to the pits for Takuma Sato, who's being hounded by the press at the moment. Let's see what he's got to say with Louise.
Takuma Sato, welcome to WEC, but this is not what we want to see. What's the problem?
We're looking into that. It's some kind of a drivetrain problem, but just engine couldn't start it at the moment. So engine not itself, but something related for the starter.
And aside from that, you did the first 2 stints. How was it for you?
It's great, you know, absolutely new experience for me. And I mean, unfortunately, we weren't competing on the same class, but it was great fun. We done the whole 2 stint, and we had having a problem on the downshift and things like that, and we had a few problems. But otherwise, I really enjoyed the endurance run. I mean, at the moment, it's a really shame that we couldn't keep up the landing.
Thank you.
It's amazing, Graham, just the level of local press interest that there has been this week for the practice on Wednesday, and certainly all of the official sessions. The media centre where you are at the moment has been absolutely full, and not just of the normal faces of the international press corps.
No, we've got an awful lot of local regional media here, with an awful lot of fans, and the double kind of attraction, if you like, of those 5 Japanese drivers. And as we were saying earlier in the broadcast, John, those 14 cars here that feature Japanese manufacturers' engines installed, more than half the field as fitted with either Toyota, Honda or Nissan engines, and that's a massive step forward for the Japanese manufacturers in world-class endurance sports car racing since 3 years ago, when we had the first tentative steps back into the international field by the Japanese makers. Worth saying as well, John, while we've got a moment, so we're still looking at pictures of them perhaps putting the 15 car back together. No, they're not. They're still working on it. That we hope to hear in 2 weeks' time in Shanghai some further details of the Asian Le Mans series. Yeah. We now have more or less a full calendar for that, so we've got details of some of the broadcast deals, but spoke to Remy Berard and Mark Thomas on the grid here, and they've got, I think, high hopes that we might see finally, a good regional series here in Asia. Problem there at the track, number 41 car, John.
Turn 15, as we just heard from Eduardo Freitas there. It has rejoined big black marks as we're heading up towards half distance in 22 seconds time, and these P2 battles just keep coming. This is 4th position and the Peacock. Oh, a spin there for the Peacock car with the Starworks Racing in very close attendance. That's Luis Perez Compang and Ryan DL coming up to put a move on the former rally driver. It looked like Luis Perez Compang just got a little bit deep into turn 1, tried to turn in, and the back tyres have given up here as he turns in. Oh, he's way offline and trying to get on the throttle. As I said, a lot of these corners are trailing throttle. You can't do that there if you go wide. Spun up the rear Dunlops, and there is 4th place handed to Ryan DL, who has been lapping around about 2 or 3 seconds quicker than Perez Compang.
And another spin. That's the 15 car earlier on, I presume. But the Luis Perez Compang car there handing back the position to Ryan with a spin. That Ryan gave to him with a spin earlier on. They said the same stint.
Yeah, that was before the 15 car came into the pit lane, which has been there for, it seems, quite some time, Paul, that 15 car.
Over 20 minutes, yes. Just coming up now for 22 minutes in the pits for the Oak Racing car, but heading on its way again now. Dominic Kryhammer it was. I suggested it was Bertrand Baguette, but Dominic Kryhammer has taken the car back out again, and it was Baguette who started it, wasn't it? No, that's right, it was Baguette who started it. That's where I've gone wrong. Tako took it over. Takuma Sato took it over. Tako.
I think that works,
and Dominic Kryhammer is now behind the wheel, following 22 minutes and 48 seconds in the pits. Illustration of just how hard the P2 cars are being driven, isn't it?
Yes.
Seeing these little spins happening. Illustration as well as to how hard the Audi is being driven. The leading car in the hands of, the second place car, the leading Audi, the second place car in the hands of Ben Treluet. A 1:28.479 a few laps ago, just a few thousandths off the overall fastest lap of the race, which is still held by the Toyota at the moment, 1:28.470, so 9 thousandths of a second slower on that lap, now 4 laps ago by Ben Treluet. But Treluet now has closed the gap. Remember, it was 18 seconds, it's down now to 11.6 seconds then. So again, as Lapierre gets deeper and deeper into this second stint on the set of tyres, he's going to lose ground, and we'll see and we'll monitor it before his next pit stop how many seconds he loses. He's due in on or around lap 126, so another 6-7 laps to go for Nicolas Lapierre before he comes in for a new drive, a new set of tyres.
Yeah, he lost 1.5 seconds that time around. He had a big lock up. It's down to under 13 seconds again, and that at the end, these last 6 or 7 laps of the stints, maybe even 10 laps of the stint, Paul, seem to undo any advantage that the Toyota has by not changing the tyres at the stop.
Yeah, exactly, and the trouble is that it's the way that tails off, isn't it? He came in a lap early, remember, on his previous stint, and it may be that he comes in a little bit earlier still, but that may be part of the strategy, because if you're going to have to make a full tank refueling stop anyway before the end of the race, provided you schedule it right, then you may well be in a position to do another stop a little bit earlier.
Now here's Kaz Nakajima getting ready to go in, doing the visualization there. The 27-year-old getting ready to go to work for Toyota Racing. Put the car on pole position to massive cheers yesterday. Under 3 hours to run now as his car picks its way through traffic on the front straight, and it'll be, I think, very interesting to see what Nakajima does and how he can pace himself, and if he can possibly get more life out the tyres, or if he can get more pace out of the car that makes Pascal Vasselon think, well, do you know what, he's getting better pace out the car, let's take the 20 seconds, because clearly they're on the cusp of making that decision at the moment, Paul. They're considering it, but they don't think that there's enough advantage to be had
to do the double, to do the tyre change.
Tyres,
no, that's right. I mean, the trick of it is to do the fast laps, and then to be able to consistently do the fast laps right the way to the end of your double stint, or else to do faster laps. Because, you know, we've seen it that Lapierre has been able to better the fastest lap of the race into the race already, so he's pushed the fastest lap of the race quicker still. Is Nakajima going to be able to do the same thing and continue to go faster? We'll just have to wait and see, I think, because it's not clear. What is clear is that Lapierre is going to be the next one into the pits. Again, that Toyota sliding as he goes into the corners.
Isn't it amazing the difference in how the car looks at the beginning of the stint to the end of the stint? It looks nailed down, solid, and actually pretty easy to drive, relatively speaking, in the first part of the stint, and then when you see it now in these, as I say, last 8 to 10 laps of the second stint, you just wouldn't want to be in that car. It looks a real handful.
And of course it's going through the traffic that's where it's hard, isn't it? Because going through the traffic, you don't want a car that's sliding sideways. Again, something that Oliver Jarvis told me after Le Mans. They felt that the tyres weren't working for them at Le Mans, and one thing that he felt very strongly about was where it hit you was in your confidence through the traffic.
Yes, absolutely. Let's look back at the first half of the race then. The start was pretty frantic with, I think, 5, maybe 6 abreast as they went down at the first corner. Alex Wurz held the lead thanks to the burst of supercapacitor energy to the back wheels. I have to say that the #1 Audi, which was started by Andre Lotterer, wasn't it? He got right up alongside at one point, but it really didn't benefit him. McNish went through into second place. P2 action has been hot and heavy all the way through the first half of the race, with 5 cars going into a space where really there was only room for probably 1.5 coming out of the Dunlop chicane, which has seen a lot of the action. Alan McNish defending against his teammate, but couldn't hold on to second position, and then McNish having further problems a little bit further around the lap when they came up on the GTE Pro leaders, the Ferrari and the Porsche battling together, and Mark Lieb, seeing an opportunity perhaps to have a go at the Ferrari, turned right into the side of Alan McNish. No harm, no foul as both cars continued. Pit stops have generally favoured the Audis, with the Toyota coming in roughly 5 laps before either of the E-Tron Quattros. And really then it's just been watching what's happened on the exchange of pit stops. Fast for the Toyota at the start of the stint, but they are double stinting their tyres. The Audis taking a new set of Michelins every time they stop, regardless of whether they are changing drivers or not. There's the wavy pit lane we were talking about earlier on. So that lead has gone backwards and forwards between the #1 Audi and the #7 Toyota Racing TSO 30. There have been mistakes though, where the Toyota, clearly running out of grip, has gone straight on, particularly at turn 16. And the Panasonic corner has been where all of the action has been. P2 has continued to provide us with plenty of reasons to get excited, and more than 1 or 2 lockups as well. A really crazy manoeuvre at, oh yes, turn 16 again, when it looked like Nicolas Lapierre was on the wrong pedal at one point, pushing right one instead of middle one. And so this duel goes on, and the differing strategies from Toyota, who tend to be fast at the start of the stint, and Audi, who catch them back up again at the end. How that will play out in the next 3 hours, well, if it stays the way it is, I think it's slightly advantage Audi. In GTE Pro, Aston Martin starting at the back after an infringement in qualifying yesterday, cancelled out their best time, fought their way through. Darren Turner in particular was very good through traffic. Stefan Munger hasn't had the best of luck. can't really take our eyes off the front of the field, because it has been the prototype battles that have kept us enthralled as we go into the second half of the 6 hours of Fuji. Just a few moments ago, it was Ryan DL getting 4th place in LMP2 for Starworks when Luis Perez Compound misjudged his braking into the first corner. Not the first, no, I fear the last, that will be doing that with 3 hours still to go. Actually 2 hours 50 minutes. Let's go back to Paul Truswell for an update, and then we'll bring in Graham Goodwin in the press room at Fuji. Paul.
Yeah, so 8 changes of lead in that summary that you were just describing then thus far.
Well counted. Oh, and the number 1 Audi's off the track, and has got damage on the left front. There's been a bit of contact there, unless he's just bounced across the curbs. No, he's hit the back of the Aston Martin, hasn't he? He's come from nowhere and hit the back of the Aston Martin, completely misjudged his braking into the Dunlop curves. There's damage to the front end of that car. He spun around the 97 Aston Martin, and I'm afraid to say that that is a mistake then for the championship leading Audi, Ben Treluet, with damage to the left front, the under tray as well as the front side. But now he hasn't come into the pit lane this time around, and I think that was probably, yes, Graham, that they weren't ready for them, and he's been effectively, in aircraft carrier parlance, he's been waved off, and he'll have to do another 2.84 miles. But that all of a sudden is a chink in the armour of the number 1. And he's just left his braking way too late and come from way too far back. There's not a chance that the GT driver is going to see him from there, Paul.
No, it's yeah. I won't. It was.
It's the tightest corner on the circuit.
It certainly wasn't the Aston's fault. There was no way that the Aston could disappear. And
he's let a P2 car through and then had to turn in.
Exactly. I think Lotterer was thinking the P2 car. He was looking at where he was going to do the P2 car, and he just, for the moment, shut his eyes to the Aston. And sadly, the Aston didn't disappear. So he is staying out for another lap. The inevitable notice comes up on the screen saying that the incident is under investigation. So the Aston is under investigation. There's driver then getting ready to get into the car.
I think this is, well, into the pit lane this time around, already in the pit lane filter for the number 1 Audi. This is the second placed Audi, and the Audi that leads the championship as well at the moment in terms of the drivers, of course. And I think that's more than just top bodywork. I'll be honest with you, I think that might be an under tray.
There was a bit of sparking, wasn't there?
Yeah.
That was the trouble, which suggests that there might be a bit of suspension damage, but we'll see.
I think you'll see this go onto the dolly wheels and go straight back into the garage. The straps are coming off, Graham.
It was the JRM car that was actually in front of the Aston Martin there, and I tend to agree with you. There's absolutely nothing at all that Stefan Mucker could have done there.
No.
He had to turn in, and they're going to be very lucky not only to just lose the time here with the repair that's inevitably needed, but to get away without a penalty for that. Because I think you're right. I think a bit of tunnel vision there from Benoit Treluet.
Well, hop Suisse as Marcel Fessler climbs into the number 1 car. The normal service,
they're ready with a nose in the pit lane.
Yeah,
they're ready with a nose in the pit lane. I'm not sure the car is going to go into the garage.
I'm surprised. I am surprised.
Can't see Dolly's ready.
Let's not forget. Oh, from the back of the Aston Martin, there's just nowhere. There's just, I'm not even sure, Graham, that the number 1 car was going to make the corner at that pace.
Yeah, it is just a nose change confirmed by Audi. They're not going to put the car in the garage.
Wow, okay, very good. Thank you, Martin. Let's not forget they had a broken nose in the pit lane at Bahrain when they caught a cameraman. Caught one of their own mechanics, rather, as they were trying to put the nose on. They broke off one of the dive plates.
And they're going to be in trouble here, John, because there's one headlamp not showing.
Oh, it's that left headlamp problem. This is Bahrain all over again. And did I see the Toyota in as well there?
Yes, that's a scheduled pit stop for the Toyota on lap 126. So he has stuck it out to 32 laps this time for Nicolas Lapierre, but it will be Nicolas Lapierre handing over to Kazuo Nakajima then in the race-leading Toyota number 7. Marcel Fessler back on his way after a stop of 1 minute and 44 seconds to change the nose and the tyres and refuel and change the driver on the number 1 Audi. But it does put it back behind the number 2 Audi, so Audi's back into the order that they were earlier on in the race, with the number 2 Audi ahead of the number 1 Audi. The Toyota heads off down the pit lane with new tyres on Kazuo Nakajima's car, and the pit stop for the Toyota as it breaks the beam 1 minute 22 seconds.
Wow.
So they've got it to being as close as it needs to be to Audi, whilst the number 1 Audi of Marcel Fessler gets back up to speed. Debris on the circuit there at turn 10, isn't there?
I think it's just far enough off the line, and at the moment that Audi, having just changed its nose, is having to drive on full beam to have that headlight working. The left headlight is 2 LED strips, and only one of them is working.
Safety car is on standby.
This must be for the debris. And now, has that headlamp come on properly now? I don't think so.
Safety car out.
And the safety car is being deployed. So, with 2 hours and 45 minutes almost exactly on the clock, the 2 safety cars will roll. One on the front straight, and the second one just after the Advan hairpin. Safety car A on the front straight, safety car B, as I say, just after the Advan hairpin at turn number 6, and that is clearly to remove that debris. There's some very, very sharp shards, and quite large, and not just carbon fibre there, they've got metal fixings on them, and I think that's what's caught Eduardo Freitas' eye. He does not like putting safety cars out.
No.
Oh, and here's the number 2 Audi coming into the pits whilst the safety car is out. Here's Eduardo.
Safety car, we are under safety car. We need to clean the track. We are under safety car. I'm scrambling the safety car on track now. Safety car on track now.
Now, taking a pit stop when the safety car's out is really rolling the dice, because with 2 safety cars and with the default position being pits closed,
it's an interesting call, because I suspect what he's trying to do, because bear in mind this is H making the call, is he's assuming it's going to be a very rapid safety car, which means that potentially he'll be able to be in and out fairly quickly. The car was due in anyway.
yes,
Not that soon. I mean, he'd certainly had enough fuel for another 10 laps. This is Alan McNish at the wheel of the number 2 car. And yeah, I'm not sure whether it will turn out to be a good move or a false move, but Howden's good at this, so I'm certainly not going to say it was a bad move. Red light then at the end of the pit lane.
That's your problem.
McNish, and he has to stop there and wait until the safety car queue comes around.
Now, it would have been about the 120 again. 120 has passed by. Here comes the safety car. It's going to be another 10 seconds, possibly more at least, before he's allowed to go, because the default is pit lane closed until the safety car comes through. It goes to green and then immediately to red again. Only the people who are sitting at the end of the pit lane are allowed to go.
Absolutely right.
Not in the same train, by the way, guys, as the Toyota.
No.
The train going by is the other train. Debris to be cleared, we're being told at turns 1, 10 and 16, and there are 2 things at play here, of course. One is the race lead and race win overall. Second thing is points in the Drivers' Championship, and that's where we're going to be in a very significant moment here, depending on where the number 2 car emerges.
It emerges after a pit stop time of 2 minutes and 7 seconds, but bear in mind that 2 minutes and 7 seconds is as compared to a lap time of about 4 minutes, as opposed to a lap time of 1 minute and 30 seconds.
Yes.
So it's not as bad of a pit stop as you might think it was. So, you know, the call was to do it like he's done it. yeah, it would have been an interesting call to. It'd be interesting to be able to do both and just see how they play themselves out.
I always think the thing to do is to wait until the safety car is about to come in, and and just drop straight into the pits at that point.
Yeah.
When you have two safety cars, it is such a lottery. If you are in the right part of the safety car queue, for example, there's quite a long queue behind safety car A, you drop off the back of it and you can do your pit stop just and get to the end of the pit lane just as safety car B is coming by, then happy days. But if you've got to wait for safety car A to come all the way around again, you have lost a lap.
Exactly right. And what's happened now is that we've got the Toyota still leading the race, or Kazuya Nakajima now back into the lead of the race. He had made his pit stop and was clear just before the safety car came out. So Nakajima at the wheel of the number 7 car in the lead of the race. Marcel Fessler at the wheel of the number 1 Audi is in second place, behind the same safety car as Nakajima is. So number 7 and number 1, first and second, behind the same safety car. Alan McNish, behind the wheel of the number 2, is behind the second safety car. Now, the gap first to third between the Toyota and Alan McNish was 50 seconds. Now, by the time the safety car has got going or has gone, then we're going to be back in roughly the same situation as we were before, except that Alan McNish will have a full tank of fuel.
Or the other position,
Graham, just 1 second, we're going down to the pit lane, and Dr. Ulrich from Audi is about to talk to Louise Beckett.
For both your Audis now, with that incident with the Aston, but also Audi number 2 coming in for their pit stop at that point.
Yeah, but this pit stop was just because the pace car came out and was just the right moment to do it. The first one with Ben was really a pity because the Aston closed him the door. He had no chance to avoid him, and he broke quite intensely the front splitter, so he had to come back to the pits to replace it. This is really a pity because this car was really in a good position to go for victory, but we keep on fighting.
Thank you.
Safety car will be in this lap, so safety car B goes in on the back side of the circuit and safety car A on the main front straight. Safety car A with the lights out at the moment and with the leader in behind him, that is Kaz Nakajima. So that Audi RS5 has got one more corner to go, whereas safety car B, is he anywhere near pulling off the track? I've got to say that Eduardo Freitas is by far the best person I've ever seen in marshalling two safety cars around the circuit at the same time. I'm still not entirely certain, as the safety car A goes back into the pit lane, why we need two safety cars on a track that's less than 3 miles around. But with that being said, I have had less rants about safety cars this year in the WEC than possibly any time before. When you were a kid and you had your scale electric out, did you ever try and do both cars with one with your left hand, one with your right hand? That's Eduardo Freitas used to do that. Graham?
Guys, it looks to me as if actually the safety car B train might have got a bit of an advantage there, because I think they will let go slightly early.
Well, that's the problem,
they certainly look to be closing in rather quicker. The other point I was going to make just before we went to Dr. Ulrich in the pits is with Alan being at the back of the second safety car queue, that means he's got the entire field between himself and Kaz Nakajima. So he's not only got the time to actually make up, but he's got to get past, what, 25 other cars to get into the tail of the Toyota 2. But the gap as they cross the line between Nakajima and Fessler, now in second, of course, is just a tick under 7 seconds, with McNish a further, it's 33 seconds off the lead.
Mark at Green Ghost 666 says, why did the WEC close the pit exit whilst the LMS allowed drivers to exit and catch up the safety car? It's just the way they do it. They don't close the pit lane either. That's the other big difference. In America, the first thing you do when the safety car goes out is you close the pit lane. You gather the field up first. Just to be clear, John knows what he means. When he says close the pit lane, he means close the pit lane entrance. Yes, sorry. What we were talking about before was closing the pit lane exit, which is what happens in WEC races. It's a fundamentally just different approach to it. And even in the UK, where we don't necessarily close the pit lane entrance, the default is that the exit light of the pit is green. You turn the pit lane exit left. You turn the pit lane exit lights red when the safety car train is on the front straight, and then everybody, it goes back to green, and you just basically beetle back out and get back on the end of the train. It's a fundamentally different way to do this, and Gerard Neveu, the man at the head of the WEC, wrote this particular rule himself. And a long chat with him and Steve Tarrant, actually, one of our Marshall friends at Silverstone, and they were discussing the relative merits of doing it one way or the other. I also noticed today, while we're talking about safety cars, and before everything gets mad again, because yellows breed yellows, as they say in the States, that the VLN, Graham, have adopted code 60.
Oh, have they? Well,
yeah.
That's very interesting news. The other quick thing, by the way, of course, that we do get as a result of the safety cars being marshalled in the way that they were, is that Kaz Nakajima's got a completely clear track ahead of him at the moment. That means he's gone through in a 1:30.591 on the first flying lap after the safety cars are withdrawn, whilst Marcel Fasler, all he could actually manage is just a touch under 1:36. Meantime, Alan McNish has made up ground. Okay, it's a slightly false reading because the cars are at pace, but by our reckoning, he made up something like 27 seconds with the early release of that safety car.
Yeah. So 2:35 still to go, and this will take a wee while to sort itself out, but a moment of excitement. We still haven't seen any penalty that might be assessed on the number 1 Audi, and I fear after seeing that footage that well, they might get a black and white flag, but I'm sure that John Gore from Aston Martin, the managing director of Aston Martin Racing, will be saying that they want something called, because it really lost them some ground. Meantime, the 32 Cordova Coupe has Ryan DL right up his tailpipes, and as Ryan got a little bit of damage on the left front as well, doesn't have the ponies to go by. No, it's just
a dive plane that sticks out quite a long way.
Yeah, I was just looking around the rear edge of the front wheel there as well, Paul, and I think it's just dirt. They've got traffic to come now, and this is the battle for second position. It's Vitantonio Liuzzi versus Ryan DL. That's a mouth-watering prospect, isn't it? Those two drivers who not so very long ago might have been racing open wheelers together in another time and place, or against each other, should I say, rather than together. Getting two people into an open wheeler is difficult.
GTE Pro Ferrari, the AF Corsa car, Jimmy Bruni we saw coming into the pits there. They've had a routine pit stop back to Giancarlo Fisichella, who's taken the Ferrari back out onto the track again. He's taken the car back out into third place, so the Aston Martin, of whom we were speaking a little while ago, 97 car, Stefan Mucker at the wheel at the moment, is 30 seconds behind the Porsche still. So in a few laps time we'll get the number 77 and 97 coming in for their routine pit stops as well, the Porsche and Aston Martin, and when they do, then I suspect they'll end up sandwiching the Ferrari again. LMP2 is fantastic racing, isn't it, John?
Starworks getting the nod from graphics that they'd gone through there, and in fact they haven't quite yet, but right, are they telling the future here as Ryan DL tries to go the long way around, and Liuzzi holds the inside line. Now will it be the old over and under move from DL? Gets on the power earlier as he plunges down through turn number 2 towards the very, very quick Coca-Cola curve. Just click it down one gear, turn it in, clip the inside curb. You can't afford to run out too far on the other side because you've got to haul it round to the right. Climbing up now, let the gradient straighten the car out as they're down into the Advan curve, and there's more traffic ahead of them. It looks like the Starworks car's fast on the straight, but not fast enough, but can't keep up with that coupe, Paul, in the twisty stuff.
Meanwhile, back at the front, Kazu Nakajima sets another fastest lap of the race, 1:28.435 now.
Light blue touch paper and stand well back.
Isn't Nakajima going well. Compare that time to Marcel Fessler, who's yet to hit the groove, really. 1:29 has been his fastest of recent laps, and Alan McNish in the #2 car, also with a full tank of fuel, of course. He hasn't broken the 1:30s since the safety car was withdrawn as he fights through the traffic.
That's exactly the point, I think, Paul. They're both still fighting their way through traffic. That's the second 1:28 in a row from Kaz Nakajima. He's making hay, isn't he? He's 16, almost 17 seconds clear now of Marcel Fessler, with Alan McNish a further, 21, 22 seconds back. Meantime, down in P2, you're quite right. Cracking battle underway at the moment with Tonio Liuzzi and Ryan Diel. Tor Graves, meanwhile, is better part of 30 seconds to the good. Presumably, difference there between the two safety car trains. As we look again at that incident there, the one bit of good news, I guess we can report after that, what was a heck of a biff on the back of that Aston Martin Vantage, is it doesn't seem to have done any harm to the pace that the Aston's able to produce, because Stefan Mucker is another man that's actually just put in 2 fastest laps of the race for that car.
Yeah, it's straightened up from the biff it had earlier on and put the towing back in the right place. Clearly that bit of precise engineering by Audi #1 there. Nice bit of a souvenir being picked up by one of the marshals, a shake of the head from Dr. Wolfgang Ulrich in the Audi pit, and he still does not look happy as he's standing at the back of the pit garage and thinking to himself that that has not done their chances of victory any good at all. We did say, Graham, didn't we, after Brazil, that Audi might struggle to win another race. Hang on, I'll break off from that thought as Liuzzi and DL are back at it again and again. There's the, guess what, the Felbermayr Porsche is there. They're going to try and go one either side, and Liuzzi's way off the track. He's going to have to lift off. Oh, he didn't. It cuts right across the bows of the Porsche as they came out of the final corner. DL had an advantage for a moment, but he has not got the speed. Has to drop back into the slipstream and try and make a move. I just wonder what kind of trouble in terms of pickup Liuzzi is in as he comes into the braking area for turn #1. No, the tyres seem to be holding out, and that was a real opportunist manoeuvre there, but the pass was not made. Liuzzi way out in the boonies on driver's left.
And this is the car, remember, that earlier in the race, Liuzzi was telling us was down on power. Didn't look at there, did it? Albeit he made a specific reference to me about being down on power to the Nissans rather than the HPD, but no shortage of ponies from that jump there, and that's an Audi going off the circuit, John.
It is, and that is the #1 car, is it not?
That's 2.
No, it's the 2. It's McNish. Oh my goodness me! As the PCOM Racing P2 car is in the pit lane from 4th in class.
That's Pierre Keffer aboard the car now by the look of things. First time in the race.
And talking of pit stops, not yet seen by the cameras. In fact, I don't think we've seen a pit stop from the Aston Martin yet. Number 97 is in the pits. Now this is slightly ahead of schedule for number 97, Stefan Mucker. Normally it would come in at the same time as the 77 Porsche, but he's come in a little bit early, and possibly as a result or as an opportunity to have a look at the damage as the battle between the Starworks car coming into the pits now then, so that's going to be the end of that little battle. I just wonder whether it is pure horsepower between those two, or whether it's just the different aerodynamics of coupe versus open prototype, because coupes are quicker in a straight line.
He's so lucky there that he comes back on and he doesn't lose that car, because he's taken a pure leap of faith driving across, not knowing whether that's grass, AstroTurf, what's in there, or anything. And
he didn't necessarily know exactly where the Porsche was, did he?
Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree with that. Paul, I'm going to ask you a question that may take you a little time to work out. That safety car, it has taken a slight change then to the Audi's pit stop strategy, particularly Howden's car, the 2 car. Is that going to affect what happens from? Well, it is going to affect what happens from now on in, but is that an advantage for them necessarily? So I'll leave you to think with that. That noise in the background is the pit lane hooter, which sounds like a 1974 trim phone ringing, as into the pit lane comes Ryan DL from out of, he was in 4th place, and that's a full service for that car. DL's out, and that car's overheating. Remember, that car did not restart at the last stop at Bahrain, Graham, and that cost them an even better result, didn't it? As Graham...
He's listening to somebody else, isn't he?
Yeah, clearly, because I'm not making them laugh like that.
Mark Lieb's come in for his pit stop. The number 77 Porsche is into the pits, and he will, as a result of that, rejoin. In fact, he has already rejoined and not lost the lead.
Oh, wow.
So because the other two cars, yeah, that's why, of course, because the other two cars made their pit stops first, now he's back out on the track having made his pit stop, then he has maintained the lead of the class. So the number 77 is in the lead of the class. Nick Minassian is out of the PCOM car, and Pierre Caffer, in fact it was Perez Compan who was out of the car. Nick Minassian has done his stint a little while ago. Pierre Caffer now back out in that car. And the Aston Martin, Stefan Luca has handed it over to Darren Turner, and it was a 1:23 stop, so it was a quick enough stop, so clearly if there was any damage, no remedial work needed from the Aston Martin mechanics, and they've got the car back on its way without any further loss of time, although it is still third in the class, some 30 seconds, as I said, it's kind of sandwiching now. It and the Porsche are sandwiching the Ferrari. So still the Felbermayr Proton Porsche leads GTE Pro. The Ferrari now in the hands of Fisichella, 6 seconds behind. And then the Aston Martin a further 25 seconds behind the Ferrari.
It's a big change, isn't it, in that class, Paul, since the car, because we saw prior to the safety car, the 51 car had something like, what, 20-30 seconds to make up. So they've profited from the safety car period. Meantime, last time around we saw both of the Audis under 1:30 for the first time, I think, since safety car was withdrawn. That coincided with a 1:31 from Nakajima, so the gap's come down just a little, but it's all in traffic at the moment.
And Graham in P2, I was wrong, Ryan DL didn't get out of that 44 car, so he's doing a double, and he's right on the tail now of Jacques Nicolet, and he'll be through any second now. And there he, oh no, he doesn't get through as Nicolet chops him off going through the 13th corner. But surely Ryan on fresher tyres will not be denied for too long as they head up the short straight towards the final corner. Ryan will go round the outside and then cut back, getting on the power earlier to get down the front straight, and he's already alongside him. Lays a little bit of Dunlop rubber onto the tarmac, but goes through and takes 4th position back. Graham,
don't bet on it, because I'll tell you that.
Oh, look at that!
It says here the Morgan is a slippery car, and the Nissan's a powerful engine. Thought he might do that. Away he goes. He's retaken it on pure grunt down the straight. A very aerodynamically efficient car. Ryan goes to the inside. That's not always been the right move to make, but just goes to show the difference in performance characteristics of the chassis and the engines there shown up.
Yeah.
Clearly Ryan by far the more professional of the drivers, but in terms of what's available from that package, that's Morgan chassis, and it will, by the way, remain a Morgan chassis next year.
Oh, really?
Yes, it will. It will remain as a badge as a Morgan chassis, I'm told by Sebastian Philippe, that just how quick it can be in a straight line.
I love long straights, and I love the fact that the start-finish line here is down the straight a bit and not just straight out the last corner. I mean, we saw the positions change twice there in the space of less than a mile, and long straights give you that opportunity. And I really dislike racing tracks where you've got a long straight as the start-finish line,
yeah, and
you've got the checkered flag, you know, 20 yards out of the final corner. In the pit lane is the G-Drive Nissan powered Oreca, the 26 car, and in here is its teammate, the 23 coming in as well. The 26 brought in by Roman Rusinov, And the 23's had an awful day today, hasn't it? It's just never been there or thereabouts at the front of the field, Graham.
It has to be said, I mean, the 23 and to a slightly lesser extent the 26 had an awful season, John. They had a good run last time out in Bahrain, both cars in the top 5, but Signatech just have not been able to cut any kind of breaks whatsoever this year. You're saying about this long straight here, first time yesterday evening we took the opportunity to pop over to the other side of the circuit with all the kind of the entertainment and the concessions are here behind the main stand, and thought, okay, we'll come and have a look at what kind of view you get from the stands. It's only at that point that you realise just how much of a straight there is before the start-finish line. It is a very long straight indeed here, and I absolutely agree with you. It adds something to the spectacle, because you do get, at the point at which it's passing the main spectator stands here, the cars really are almost at VMAX, and they're coming into that tight right-hander and downhill right-hander at that, which means that there's a big challenge there into turn 1 and down the hill into turn 2. It's the part of the racetrack, I think Alan McNish was telling us yesterday, is the challenging bit rather than the kind of supermarket car park effort, the rather more Tilke-ized effort of the end of the circuit.
What do you reckon they're doing? Has anybody given up any data for you? On the sims that I was looking at, and some of the data I was looking at, I was seeing 314 kilometres, depending on how slippery the car was and how it was geared.
No, haven't seen that at all, but what I can tell you is amongst a group of people who are going quickly, the one that's off at the moment is Kaz Nakajima. He's just done around with 128.433, and that follows again the fastest lap of the race for that car, a 128.212 for the number 7 car, and is beginning to extend again an advantage over the Audis. And once again, John, it has to be said, it would seem to me that the Audis have been the architects of their own misfortune.
Well, I can't disagree with that, but hasn't that been the case? The point I was going to make actually a little while ago when we started getting excited about that Ryan DL battle that was going on, is that, you know, we said at Brazil, didn't we, that there was a reasonable opportunity that Audi might not win another race this year, given the pace that we'd seen from the Toyota. Now, they were, if you can say anybody was robbed in Bahrain, they were, because the whole number on that side by side with the ADR Delta, and that was Tor Graves. 6 of one, half a dozen the other there, but that wasn't a really smart ruse from Kaz Nakajima with the gentleman driver on board the 25 car. It was very much side to side, coming out of the Dunlop curve again into turn number 12.
There was racing room there for the Toyota. I have to say, if you had to point in one direction, I'd have tended to point towards Tor. You know, should have seen him coming. He was up the rear end of the ADR car through that turn. You know, lights ablaze. He should have seen that car coming. He'd given him room to the apex, and and turned in probably a bit too late there. But no harm, no foul. We carry on. Neil Yarney, meanwhile, in 4th position, going as quickly as that car's gone. No, nothing's touched that really, has it? No. For 4th place overall since the early laps of a race when he lost those 3 positions at the start. He's still, even post that safety car, has got a 32-second advantage over David Brabham, and this is a good run as well, John, from the JRM crew. We've not seen, have we,
no,
whether or not they've done anything about replacing that with the Galaxy panel that was flapping about at the back of the car. Nakajima, meanwhile, is going very quickly still, but Brabham at the moment is able to fend off the striker car behind, which now has Nick Leventis aboard.
Just finishing off the point, as I say, the Toyotas really were robbed in the Middle East. We've had an assurance from them that that panel will be redesigned so that you don't have to take off the whole of the side panel to expose the elephant's foot area, as the designers call it. So that will be sorted. It looks again as though Audi have sort of tripped themselves up again here, so this is certainly advantage Toyota at the moment. Now, Paul's been doing frantic calculations. The abacus has been whirring, and at one stage I was worried he was going to take his socks off as well, but the calculations tell us what, Paul?
I'll tell you that in a minute, because it'll wait. What I would like to pick up on is the point that Graham was just making about Neil Yarni just getting on with what he's doing at in 4th position, because that Rebellion Lola seems to be a bit more thirsty than the HPDs behind it, and certainly with the way that the DRM and the Straka cars are going, then they're not that far behind, or at least the DRM car is not that far behind, and might well be able to make up the ground on the Rebellion car before the end of the race, depending how the strategy unwinds. And meantime, John.
Well, actually, I'll just pick up on what you said. That's interesting, because at Brazil, the guys thought they were in a better position than they were. Here's Eduardo.
Information to the pit wall. Incident involving car 1 and car 97. Steward's decision number 8. Stop and go for car 1. Stop and go penalty car 1 for the collision with car 97. Steward's decision number 8.
I think he's been quite lucky there to get away with just a stop and go. The JRM car thought they were going to save a pit stop in Brazil until they had some electrical problems. So you may have seized on something there, Paul. Absolutely. The number 1 Audi then will get called into the pit lane 3 times past the start-finish line before it must come in, or it will be cease to be scored. They've still got the problem with that left headlight. It hasn't got both of the LED panels on. Now, it only does need one of them, but I think they're driving John, on full beam all the time. Graham.
John, that penalty is going to, of course, mean that they lose 2nd place to the number 2 Audi, which, of course, also means that they actually put themselves in the position they didn't want to be, which is losing points against the number car if that position stays till the end of the race. Meantime, we've seen another fastest lap of the race, Kaz Nakajima, 1:28.088 on his lap 143.
Tor Graves in the pit lane in the P2.
Who's going to bet against them getting below pole position time before the end of the race, the way that that Toyota is going, as the track maybe gets more grippy as the rubber goes down. Depends what else goes down as well. It makes the track less grippy, but it depends. It certainly is possible.
Temperatures are holding up pretty well in terms of the track temperature, which we said at the start of the race it was considerably colder than it had been. It's 16.6 degrees Celsius at the moment, but the track temperature is still sitting at 20 degrees Celsius. So it's held up well. It might not have a lot of grip, but it retains the heat, Paul.
That's right. Another car just being pinged for not having its headlights on is the number 41 Breeze Motorsports Zytec.
That's just gone out of the pits. That just was Todd Graves had brought it in, yeah.
Yeah, and here comes into the pits for his stop and go the number 1 Audi. Marcel Fessler then into the pits, and as Graham rightly observes, that will lose 2nd place. It was already half a minute behind, so Alan McNish is now Audi's best hope of victory, and in terms of the championship positions, of course, that does throw the advantage, not necessarily the advantage back to McNish and Christensen, but the gap, which was
13.5 points from
13.5, yeah, 139 to 126, yeah, and the difference between the points 25, 18, 15, isn't it? 1st, 2nd, 3rd.
Correct.
So it's more important to finish 1st and 2nd than it is to finish 2nd and 3rd, but it does mean that it's going to go all the way down to the wire in the final round of the championship.
And if McNish can overhaul the Toyota, if there are any problems, and he gets the Toyota between himself and his teammate, whilst I'm sure they would rather have 1st and 2nd in terms of corporate PR, Messrs Christensen and McNish might find themselves in a slightly better position vis-a-vis the championship. And let's not forget let's not forget, Graham and Paul, this is a World Championship, an FIA World Drivers' Championship, and you can say what you want. You go and speak to McNish, go and speak to Tom Christensen, with all those Le Mans wins behind him, everything that Alan has achieved, the American Le Mans Series Championships, a World Drivers' Championship does mean something particular to professional drivers. Into the pit lane comes the 57 Krone Racing Ferrari 458 Italia. Now, have they lost pretty much a full lap to that Corvette now, Paul, that's leading the class in the AM category? And that's before the pit stop, because they're one pit stop behind that car at the moment.
Yes, they have, yeah.
That's just pace then.
So, yeah, the Corvette leading the class very comfortably now. The other two cars in the class, the JWA Avila car and the other Corvette, the 70 car, are both multiple laps behind, and the other car, the 88 Porsche, the Felbermeyer car, is 40 seconds now behind the Krone Racing car. In fact, it's just gone through into second place in the class, hasn't it? Because it's just gone through now, and the Krone Racing Ferrari still at rest. Michele Rugolo was in the car. In fact, the JWA Avila car comes in as well, so that's done what it's had to do.
Oh, now here's the number 2 Audi, flashing lights massively, having a look down the inside of the Starworks car. I think that is, and there's an absolutely carbon copy incident at the Dunlop curbs. Dunlop curves between the 44 and the 2.
It was, wasn't it? And I'm reminded of what Alan McNish said to us when he was giving us the track lap earlier on, as he pointed at that straight and said, "This is a hairpin."
Damage.
Look at the damage. Look at the damage.
So there is damage now on the number 2. We see another replay of it as it was front to front, wasn't it? As Ryan turned in, and you can't even. Yeah, it's what.
There's no way through there, was there? There was no way through there.
The thing is, from Alan's point of view, right? And right. Look, you know that I'm good mates with Alan. From Alan's point of view, he sees a big wide open space down the inside there. But ultimately, they've been round this track now 148 times, and therefore he knows there is a full hairpin there where you've got to turn back and point the car back up that hill. I honestly, I just, it's not deliberate. I just think it's a low percentage move doing that.
The problem is that if you don't do it there, you've got those horrible little technical corners immediately after.
4 seconds you're going to lose.
And you've got to you've got to take this sort of long. From the driver's point of view, he's thinking, I don't want to get stuck behind that through those next corners.
Yeah, and Alan reporting on the radio, quote, "I thought he was giving me room," which is exactly the point that I was making. He thought he'd left the door open for him. But yeah, I mean, that's a dangerous, a very dangerous assumption to make, Graham.
What you just said is the World Championships at stake here, and I have to say,
low percentage
I wouldn't have done it, and that's but what he's lost more than he could possibly have gained there. Lost more than he could possibly have gained. The potential now is he's going to have to stop, put an additional stop in. That loses him the points advantage he currently holds over his teammates. The point I was actually going to make, but now may well be negated, is with the 3 points advantage that gives them over their teammates, that takes us into the final round with a 10.5 point difference. Let's presume for the moment that Alan and Tom could have won that race, and let's presume for a moment that the number 1 car actually would have finished 3rd. It means that pole position could have actually decided the World Championship.
Oh yes.
You are right down to the point where half and 1 point might make a difference here. The one reason I would point the finger here and say, sorry Alan, that was not a clever move, is why potentially give up a points advantage you hold on the road?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So let's see what occurs from that. At the moment, all the data coming from Audi says that the suspension loads are normal.
Incident under investigation, though, so there's 2 possibilities here. One, of course, is there might need to be another pit stop to repair that damage. Two is that Eduardo Freitas might have his say here, and we might go back to order restored in terms of where we stood before with the two Audis.
What I was going to say before this happened in terms of what it was doing to the strategy was that the safety car has helped Audi in the sense that it has saved them having to do another pit stop.
Yeah.
It hasn't saved Toyota from having to do the same pit stop.
Got you.
So
we were talking about possibly 3 laps from the end having a little splash.
We were talking about the Audi possibly
Yeah.
having to have a splash. Well, that safety car has saved them having to have that splash, but it hasn't saved the Toyota from having to do a final pit stop in order to make it to the flag. However, given that the Toyota is going to hold at least a 30-second advantage, assuming that nothing else changes between now and the end, which is a fatal assumption to make. But assuming that nothing else changes between now and the end, then the Toyota will have enough of an advantage to make that additional stop, regardless of what Eduardo de Freitas decides on the incident between him and the Starworks car. But you have to say, given that they've already made the call for the contact that the number 1 car, the Fessler car, had with the Aston Martin, it's a very similar call, I would suggest. Your words exactly were, John, a carbon copy move. I mean, it didn't tip the offending car into a spin as it did the Aston Martin, but it was still a substantial amount of contact. And it was avoidable contact in the sense that it was a risky move made up the inside of a corner where a gap was likely to be being closed.
You're listening to Paul Trustwell, Graham Goodwin and myself, John Hindhaugh. It's RadioLeMans.com on duty for the penultimate round of the FIA World Endurance Championship, and what a cracker this is turning out to be, with what, a couple of hours still left of this race, moving into the last third now, and that's probably at least 2 pit stops, possibly 3 for the leading cars. We'll get Paul to give us the details on that in a few moments' time, but before we do that, Graham Goodwin, as I said, only one more round to go at the end of this, but by no means all of the titles have been settled. Audi, of course, wrapped up the manufacturer's title very, very early on in the piece, I think as early as Silverstone, but still plenty to play for the other categories.
Well, yeah, we've got the Drivers' Championship we've just been talking about, and that really is now down to, of course, between the number 1 and the number 2 Audi crews. The other thing that's up for grabs, and I think will change hands after this race, is 3rd place in the Drivers' Championship will almost certainly lie in the hands of Neil Yarni and Nicola Prost. They will overhaul the points total amassed at Le Mans, Spa and Sebring by Dindo Capello, now retired, of course, from the Audi squad. Next up, because we've of course got both manufacturers' championships have been settled in the hands for Audi for LMP1 and Ferrari for GT. It is the Rebellion potential title in LMP Privateers, and frankly, both those cars are running. They're going to score reasonable points if it carries on that way. They're looking set fair for that title. LMP2, meanwhile, it's the one thing at the moment to watch. It is about Starworks, and not necessarily the car we're looking at there, the ADR Delta car, which leads the class, but actually rather more about whether Pecan Racing can overhaul Ryan DL. It's about, I think, about 30 seconds between the 2 cars at the moment. Pierre Caffer closing in and making up ground, and the 2 gentlemen drivers ahead of him. But they've got a points deficit to kind of overhaul. We don't know yet, of course, whether or not there was any damage whatsoever to the Starworks car in that little contretemps between the Audi and the HPD. But Starworks at the moment, again, looking as if they can clinch this title, but that's all going to be determined in the last couple of hours here. GT Pro, we know that they, of course, have won that. And then we get to GTEM, and we've not said much about GTEM, have we, this weekend? The pendulum there swinging very much back in the direction of Lara competition. They hold a slim, so 9 points advantage over the Feldmeier Proton car, but the Feldmeier Proton car at the moment only 3rd, and the 50 Lara car, both of those cars could score points. It would be the leading point scoring car of the 2, currently leads that race, John.
And Fiona Miller up at ridiculously early hour in the centre of England. Points out, and we were talking about this a while ago, the number 50 Labour competition cars had a full lap lead in the AM category since the second hour of the race. So then, still running around, the number 1 Audi with Marcel Fessler at the wheel, and the where is his team car? Oh, he's almost a minute away from the leader and 8.8 seconds away from his teammate.
Yes, I mean that gap reduced itself a little bit with the safety car, but it's been up near the 1 minute mark really since the original problem that car had with the initial problem that Alan McNish had when he reported getting pickup following that very early incident in the race, and since then they've not really been able to get back the time to the Toyota, both being driven flat out, but being driven equally flat out, and it was really the number 2 car on whom the Audi hopes were riding to make it a challenge to the Toyota. What we've got instead is now a battle between the 2 Audis,
yes,
rather than a battle for the lead of the race. And as long as the Toyota now can keep its nose clean, it has sufficient of a margin to be able to take it through to the flag. No further action has been required after the investigation between the Audi number 2.
The NFA'd it.
That's what they've said on the screen here.
Dodged a bullet, McNish. That is Matrix-like bullet dodging. Quite remarkable. Well,
I'm surprised, John, I have to say. We just saw a quick shot on screen, by the way, of one of the teams on the pit wall with some weather radar. We're getting lower cloud at the moment, no sign immediately of rain, but there does seem to be a suspicion that there's a possibility of sprinting before the end of this race. And again, we've seen that shot now of the area around Fuji.
Where is Fuji on there, though?
That Fuji there is the bottom left-hand corner.
Okay. By the way, we're not lobbying for Alan or indeed anybody else to have a penalty. It's just on what we saw. As I said straight away, although it looked to me like a carbon copy, I can understand what Alan saw when he saw that big gap down the inside, and his immediate response on the radio was, I thought he was leaving the gap for me. Now that is all very well and good as the PCOM 49 misses its braking point entirely through that corner that has been the cause of so much concern this race, but as you rightly said, Graham, given what we've already said, it's a bit like when you watch a soccer match, a football match, and somebody gets a yellow card early on for a tackle, and you see something later on that's the same that doesn't, and you sort of go, oh, all right, I don't quite understand that, but fine. So I think
my major point with it, John, is that having gained the advantage over his teammate, which, let's face it, there are 2 things at play here for Audi. One is to try to win this race. The second thing is between the 2 Audi squads, and it's about points. And there, he was not at imminent risk of losing that advantage. Yes, he may have actually suffered a kind of a second or two's disadvantage by following the car through those turns. And my view was that wasn't the cleverest move I've seen Alan make in his career.
No, and I still wonder, how much the coupe and vision plays a part in these decisions.
Not in that. No, sorry, not in that move. Not in that move. He clearly saw the car ahead of him. He knows where the apex is. He told us, of course, in the preamble to the race that that was in effect a hairpin. And no, I can't see. I think that was just a fumble, I'm afraid.
Okay, so no further action for that, deemed a racing incident. Let's move on. The 24 of Oak Racing and Jacques Nicolet circulating quite nicely at the moment. Jacques done a pretty good job in this stint of getting his time in behind the wheel. Should remind those of you who perhaps are more likely casual viewers and listeners that The P2 category, like the GTE AM category, is a Pro AM category. And
I think we're watching John at the moment, Alan McNish's lap times, and he's just going around at 1:32 and he's losing time on this lap again to Marcel Fessler. The gap now under, well, it's just 3.1 seconds. That's come down pretty rapidly. He's lost time in both the first sectors on this lap after losing something like, what, 4 seconds? I think on the last lap.
I wonder if he's got a slow puncture on that left front after the incident.
It's quite possible.
Just going back to the LMP2 and GTE ARM categories, it's a Pro-Am category, and therefore the gentleman drivers, the drivers who don't make their living out of racing, and they're all graded at the start of the season, they have a minimum amount of time that they have to spend behind the wheel. And depending on how serious you are about getting a decent result, managing that minimum time is one of the keys to success in LMP2 and GTE AM, of course. That was an Audi crew getting ready?
No, it was the Toyota team getting ready for Kazuya Nakajima, due in at the end of his next lap. Depending whether he was able to save some fuel while the safety car was out, because remember Nakajima came, or rather Lapierre came in just before the safety car came out. Nakajima, the first thing he was confronted with after he came out was the safety car being out. So Nakajima now due in for his next pit stop. As far as McNish is concerned, across the start-finish line, he was the fastest car to trip the speed trap at 294.3 kilometres an hour, comparing to the number one car at 293 kilometres an hour. So I think it was probably just Alan taking it careful through the traffic, listening to us moaning about him through the traffic. He's obviously taking good notes, John. But there doesn't seem to be anything wrong with his lap times, except that he's not breaking the 1 minute 30s.
Yes.
But at the moment, you know, you have to.
And there are the two Audis on the end of the pit straight together, Paul. There's nothing between them now, other than about 1.2 seconds. And again, turn number 10 has caused some incident. That's the P-Com car.
That's actually just a replay, John, of a change for position. That's Pierre Caffer going by Kevin Weider, and now his next target is going to be his championship rival, YNDL.
Leader is in the pits. The Toyota flags are waving, as are the Audi flags on the far side of the very long straight here.
I bet they change the tyres now.
Oh, I bet they do. There's no sense in them not doing it.
Exactly.
I don't see tyres out.
No tyres ready.
Well. Now that does surprise me. I think you don't take any chances at this stage.
Well, I would have done if I was running the team. On the other hand, they may be saying, well, look, we'll just take the pain of the reduced lap times. We'll stick with our strategy. Okay. So I can kind of see it from both points of view.
No, hang on. The nose is coming off that car. No, it's just a piece of sticky tape on the left-hand side front. So that was perhaps just a catch that had come undone. But that was petrol only for the number 7 Toyota Racing TSO 30. And Kaz Nakajima is back in the fray with an hour and 54 minutes still to go.
And 1 minute and 2 seconds.
That's quick.
In the pit lane. Well, it's the first fuel only. No, we had a fuel only stop from Wirtz very early on, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Which was 56 seconds. So that was 56 seconds to take on 71 litres, and that was 1 minute and 2 to take on 70 litres. So maybe just that last 5 seconds to check the catch.
Yeah.
Apart from that, no other reason.
Now that is their 6th stop, and I don't think they can go with just one more.
You're absolutely right. They're going to need 2 more unless we get another safety car.
Yeah. As the Audis have only done 5 at the moment, and don't forget, one of those for the number 1 car was a penalty, so no work able to be done. It's the 7th round out of 8 of the FIA World Endurance Championship for 2012, the inaugural season of this Endurance Championship. Paul Trustwell, Graham Goodwin, and myself, John Hindhoff. And this has still got a very interesting look to it. And look at that, just ahead of Nakajima after he's made the pit stop. There is the Audi. He's almost got them in sight. So as they go across the line this time, it's Audi 2 from Audi 1.
2.5 seconds.
And Audi 1 from Toyota number 7.
1.9 seconds.
But remember, guys, endurance racing, just you can't get close racing. It's not exciting.
Stop it immediately. Don't even joke about that.
You might have to wait that chap up in the grandstand.
Yes.
5 seconds separating the first 3 cars after 4 hours and 10 minutes of the race.
Now, okay, we've had one very brief safety car, and there's been a bit of chicanery by the top cars, not exactly playing themselves into a position of strength, but even so, that is motor racing, and I dare say there's a bigger crowd here than for F1 in Korea, which is about to get underway, and it may well be that we've seen more excitement and more passing already than in 2/3 of our race than they will in the whole of theirs. Now, in fairness, it is 3 times the length, and I understand that, but even so, it's been a very engaging race, and we've only really on the TV pictures been seeing the sharp end of the field. There's been quite a lot of battling going on in the GT ranks as well, and in fact, speaking of that, here is the Felbermeyer Porsche number 88 into the pit lane,
which is the
just seeding second position.
Has it? Sorry, Grims, again?
Sorry, just seeding second position in classes, it does so.
Okay.
Sorry, Paul, no, cut across you there, but the other one's a watch, I think, in GT classes. It's going to be the battle for second position, because Darren Turner is beginning to close down Giancarlo Fisichella in second place.
He's had a cracking event, has DT.
Yes, I mean, just as he did in the last stint when these two were in the cars together, Fisichella against Darren Turner seems to go in the favour of Darren Turner, whereas when it's Bruni against Stefan Mucker, then the Italian seems to have the advantage. But it is, you're absolutely right, Graham, just closing down now, 15 seconds only separating the Ferrari from the Aston Martin. And to be fair, it's less than half a minute between the Ferrari and the class-leading Porsche number 77. So we've got, and we were talking about 5 seconds separating the first 3 cars. That's within pit stops, but there's 30 seconds separating the first 3 cars in the GTE Pro class. And P2 is astonishing. There's just 10 seconds separating the number 25 ADR car from the Starworks car at the moment.
And Andrea Lotterer is doing his stretches in the pit lane, getting ready for his car to come in.
Should be on lap 160 plus anything that it's gained from running slowly behind the safety car.
And there are the top 3 in the last third of the start-finish straight, braking down through the gearbox, turn into the right-hander at the first corner, and then try and use as little steering lock as possible as you accelerate down towards the Coca-Cola curve. Just there's a slight upward movement just as you turn in. So many places here at Fuji where the camber is wild, where you drive across the top of a camber, drop into a cambered corner like at the Advan hairpin at turn number 6. It's a really, really tough track.
Were they getting a nose cone ready out of the garage there?
I think
they were pushing Lotterer to one side, weren't they?
Yeah, that little trolley normally has the tyres on it, but they have another one that has a nose cone on as well.
Yeah, maybe it was just tyres they were getting ready for the Audi. So we'll be getting the number 1 car coming in first, and then 2 laps later, because remember it came in during the safety car, we'll be getting the number 2 car, which currently leads the race, Alan McNish, and this will be Alan second. No, this is Alan's second stint already, isn't it? So it will be Alan handing it back to Tom Christensen. So both of these stops will be driver changes, as in comes Marcel Fessler into the pit lane, hits the pit lane speed limit of 60 kilometres an hour all the way up 400 odd meters up the pit lane
that
altogether.
Must feel terrible.
60 is relatively slow, isn't it? I mean, when you've been out there doing all sorts of
40 miles an hour.
Yeah.
The windscreen is cleaned rather inelegantly by someone standing astride the nose. The Audi version of the sock puppet man in the left-hand door, helping with the belts on the right-hand side of the car. The guys with the guns in almost Usain Bolt-like preparation to spring into action, and not with the sound of the starting pistol, but with the sight of the fuel hose being removed. Oh, a little bit of a fumble on the left rear as the tyre and wheel was tad recalcitrant. And again, I'm not a tyre engineer, I would say those tyres had a bit of meat left in them. And I wonder if Audi had just been playing this steady all the way through the race, not taking any chances. Out goes the number 1 car. Don't cross the blend line. And in comes Alan McNish with the damage to the left front. There goes the Toyota through. So McNish has scored as a leader, and Kaz Nakajima next time round will resume the lead of the race for Toyota. Oh, no, actually, will he? Yes,
Nakajima's already in the lead. Nakajima's already in the lead. John,
yes, but sorry, he wasn't scored across the start-finish line because McNish was in the pit lane.
Yes, he was. Right. No, by the time they crossed, by the time they crossed the start-finish, the Toyota was in the lead. Oh,
really?
Yeah,
wow.
So the Toyota leads lap 163.
Okay, so that's another lead change then at lap's end. The Progressive Motorsport designed drinks bottles and fluid bottles get clipped on the left-hand side of the car. We await the diesel engine on the number 2 Audi E-Tron Quattro to fire, and it's down and away. 4 new Michelins, and it will rejoin where is the question. Has its team car gone through? Here it comes. This is going to be really tight in the first corner between the 2 Audis, and if he can hold on and keep the Gulf car behind him, which he's just about going to do, I think, yes, uses the Gulf car as a bit of a pick in basketball parlance and holds on to that position, with the number 1 car having to lift off, and McNish doing a cracking job there. Now that was heads-up driving, and that was thinking about where he was on the track, and that was certainly Graham thinking about his points and the World Drivers' Championship.
Christensen wasn't going to give that one away, was he?
Yeah, in fact it has changed over. It is Tom Christensen in that car. My apologies. As they break down, and Christensen goes defensive into turn 10, and he's very nearly got his teammate with his tailpipes there.
It's almost a carbon copy of what we saw at the beginning of the race, isn't it, here between these two? Yeah. Albeit with different drivers at the wheel. The other one to watch at the moment, guys, is the LMP2 lead, because courtesy of a rather slow lap last time around for Tor Graves, that lead has come down to just 4 seconds now.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was 1 minute 21 seconds from Andre Lotterer taking over from Marcel Fessler. 1 minute 22 seconds for Tom Christensen taking over from Alan McNish. As in the pits we see the what was 4th place now 5th placed Oak Morgan, number 24.
Pass for the position, the number 1 car down the inside. That looked rather too easy. Was that given back? Oh no, Christensen fights back. It just seemed as though he didn't defend into turn 1 at all. Now he's going to have a look at the inside the Coca-Cola curve. You can't go there, Tom, and he backs out of it. Thank goodness. And that would have been very, very dangerous at that very fast part of the circuit. Hopefully see that again. Was Tom just surprised that his teammate was there? Or did he back out of it? I would be surprised and not a tad disappointed if we were seeing team orders being applied. I just don't think we will. Don't run into each other, guys, but by all means race.
Don't run into anybody else either, never mind about this. No, I don't think it's team orders at all. I think
he got position early, didn't he?
It was purely done on the on the way that the cars were running. You do get that extra tow when you're following 2 cars rather than just one, and that probably helped Lotterer there as he was making his move.
Graham Goodwin is in the press centre at Fuji, and one of the things that's impressed us is the quality of the racing, but you've been looking at the quality of the machinery as well, Graham.
Well, happy to say, John, that we started this race with 27 cars, and with more than 4 hours gone, we've still got 27 cars running. We have had a couple of cars of that time in the garage, but 100% reliability so far. Also just been handed the least surprising news of the race so far, which is there are no team orders at Audi.
Okay, that's reasonable. Very good. That's the official line, and they're sticking to it. Well, I mean, you have to say that
rain, rain, John.
Oh,
rain here.
Oh, drama then. Real
rain reported at turn 10. We've not seen it on TV, but it's up on the screens from race control. It's the ADR Delta car will cede the LMP2 lead with its latest pit stop. Ryan DL takes over the lead with Pierre Caffa going through in second place.
Well, that makes perfect sense because that is the south. The winds are southwesterlies, and that's the southeast corner of the circuit. So that would be where the weather was coming from, and that was the direction that we saw on that picture on the pit perch earlier on. And so
getting much cooler as well, John. Down to 16 degrees here. I think you're just about to go to Alan McNish in the pits, aren't we?
This is a bit close, isn't
okay.
it?
Yeah, it is, but it's what racing's about. The problem is that the Toyota's too far ahead. We had some problems with pickup,
Louise and Alan,
which really stimulated the end of my first stint and also Tom's double, and it's only really now that the tyres are clean and we can keep pushing them, and so our performance is a bit better again. But yeah, it's tight and traffic's very, very difficult.
This is what I was just going to ask you. You've had a couple of incidents, and you always knew traffic was going to be tough here. Is it as bad as you thought, or worse?
It's actually worse now because on the test day in practice, I think there's obviously less cars, and there's it's so wide, and there's so many lines into the corners, and I think basically all of the incidents have just been total misunderstandings. I saw the one with the Toyota, and it was exactly the same that happened to me earlier, where the guy sticks completely to his inside line, which is not a normal line, but it's the one that he usually uses. We just didn't expect it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So there we are. We got there at the end with Louise Beckett down there in the pits with Alan explaining exactly what had happened in that incident earlier, and that wasn't penalised. And just what we were saying, it looks bad, but from Alan's perspective it looks like the door's being left open, and there's a big space down the inside that's tremendously inviting, and unless you've been following a guy for 2 or 3 laps you don't know what his normal line is through there. And trust me, having been on the simulator around here, there are many lines to most corners, probably more when Hindhaug's behind the wheel than anything else, and I'm not saying that any of them are any better, but we talked to Alan at the end of one of the free practice sessions, and I was quizzing him about lines, and he said sometimes the inside line isn't necessarily the place to be because you tighten up the corner overly, and with the banked portions of some of these turns here at Fuji, you can actually run round slightly, what looks to be slightly missing the apex, and get on the power and let the banking straighten you out, and you actually don't lose anything at all, and sometimes it's actually a bit quicker.
But that doesn't mean you can drive around the outside of somebody.
No. Because
the person who you're trying to then overtake is taking a normal entrance to the curve from the outside. Correct. So you can't get in and go around the outside of them. So it's not as simple as just being able to drive you take the outside line. What does happen, of course, is that as the track sometimes gets wetter, so the outside line is often a better place to be.
Yeah, you look for what's called the karting line, stay away from the apex where all the rubber is down. Definite signs of precipitation on the windscreen of the #1 Audi. At the moment, it's what Nick Damon likes to call psychological rain. And if you're a motorcyclist, you know exactly what that means. You get a few spots of rain on your visor, and all of a sudden you're scared witless to put the bike over. At the moment, these guys they're far too experienced to get spooked by this, and they will be feeling what grip there really is there.
So Andre Lotterer's response is to set the car's fastest lap time of the race.
It's a quattro with revels in these conditions.
1:28.391, the fastest lap for the #1 car. As into the pits comes Ryan Diel.
Brings the 44 Starworks HPD down pit lane, and Stefan Sarazan is ready to get aboard. So there'll be no let-up whatsoever in the attack from the championship leading car. They're looking to nail this right down by the end of this race and walk away with the silverware. Pierre Caffer still runs second in LMP2, and he was something like, what was that, 30-40 seconds back from the lead car before that pit stop. And he comes down pit lane now, so he follows Dale down, and that gap at the point at which they crossed the start-finish line was just a tad under 36 seconds. That's 36 seconds to keep the championship alive, John.
It's interesting that, because on the previous round of stops we had 49 stopping before 44.
That's right.
Whereas on this occasion it's been 44 stopping just before 49.
Graham pointed that out.
Just behind that, Nick Leventis brings the Stracker HPD from LMP1 into the pits as well. He's in 7th place, and he'll be handing that car back to Johnny Kane in all likelihood. Difficulty in this situation is, should you take a risk and put intermediates on the car already? The answer is no. You've got to put slicks on, because it's just not wet enough for any alternative.
It's a very, very brave engineer or strategist who goes from slicks to inters. It's coming back onto inters from wets that gains you the most advantage.
Ray now reported turn 3 as well on the screens here. No sign of it in front of us on the start-finish straight, and no sign of people donning coats and putting up umbrellas. So what it may be is just a passing, swift shower, guys. It might not have a big part to play here.
PCOM seem to think they're doing a good job, congratulating each other down in the pit lane. Well, you are in a fairly mountainous region when you're anywhere near Fuji, and that does create strange weather patterns, of course, as anybody who lives in the Lake District or around Manchester will know.
Less of a volcano in that area though, isn't it?
You have never been out in Manchester, clearly.
I looked it up. 1707 was the last eruption from Mount Fuji.
What, just before 10 past 5?
Yes, exactly.
10 past 5.
On a Saturday?
Absolutely. The Toyota, if you get a look at it on the screen, is closing in on the Audis ahead of it, so it's almost worth looking at the gap the other way around now. It's just about 12 seconds separating the Toyota from
putting a lap on them,
the Audis, and with a prospect then of getting a lap ahead. Now,
oh, sorry, I'm giggling because Stefan Sarazan was actually leaning forward in his belts there, trying to urge the Starworks car past the Greaves car as he's putting a lap on him down the start-finish straight. Ryan DL has done his job. He's rehydrating in the pit lane at the moment. Probably get a chance to speak to him in a wee while.
He's having a drink.
He's rehydrating. How was that wrong?
Simple English.
Okay, he's having a drink then.
So meanwhile, as we wait for the rest of the LMP2 stops to just wind out, Kevin Weeder actually leads LMP2 just for the moment, and Antonio holding out his hand and looking to see whether or not we're going to get rain on the start-finish straight. He's clearly expecting that we might. John Martin, though, is closing right down on the Lotus LMP2 now, and it's not going to be very long before the 80R Delta car is back through and into the lead in LMP2.
It took 4 seconds out of them last time around, Graham.
No, I mean, yeah, I mean, Kevin Weeder, very much the gentleman driver. John Martin, very much not. Not to say he's not a gentleman, but he's rather more of the professional end of the scale here, isn't he?
Yeah.
Guess who just set fastest sector time in Sector 1? Andre Lotterer. So he doesn't believe in psychological rain. No. And,
he's listening to you. That's what he's doing. He's listening to you, and he's watching that gap hole. He's listening into Radio Le Mans in the cockpit, and he's decided it's time to get a bit of a hurry up.
Exactly so. He doesn't want to get lapped by the race leader. Of course, it will be Tom Christensen who gets lapped first, he being in third place. And the last couple of laps, Kazu hasn't been quite as quick. Now, this is possibly, although he's been consistently under the 130s. In fact, the last time Kazu Nakajima was over 1 minute 30 was some 5 laps ago. And I'm just remembering, of course, that Nakajima is now on his second stint on that set of tyres, whereas Audi is running on new tyres on every stop. Correct. Nakajima's lap times will be of some interest then, as maybe that the cooler weather, the cloudier and possibly slightly damp conditions helps that second stint as well.
Well, were we just not remarking when you and I were talking before we came on air, when we were talking about what happened earlier on in the week, that some exceptionally fast times, Graham, were put in just after a rain shower before one of the practice sessions, if I remember
absolutely
correctly.
Right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. We'd had a bit of a kind of just a very light drizzle, and they came out and were straight on it, weren't they?
Yeah.
So that whatever it does here, whether or not it just clears a bit of dust off the track, whether or not it just gets rid of some of the debris, but they were straight there and into the from memory into the 128s, weren't they, John?
Yes, I think so. I do think so.
So,
meantime.
No, go ahead, Graham.
Sorry, meantime, sorry, Paul, we're still dealing with this slight time lag, aren't we? Meantime, we've got Darren Turner closing in still more on Giancarlo Fisichella. I think he's now got that gap under 10 seconds.
And the 23 Nissan getting full service in the pit lane. Noticeable how much debris there is offline on the start-finish straight as well as through the corners. And here is the Starworks 44, the HPD Honda with Stefan Sarazan up behind Roman Ruzinov in the R18 Nissan. This the 26 Signatech, the G-Drive sponsored machine, taking a slightly defensive line into the Advan hairpin, but that is another one of those corners where lines are multiple, particularly on the way in.
Interesting that just behind Stefan Sarazan, you've got Pierre Caffer in the Picon car, and behind him is the Oak car of Olivier Pla, and both of those cars setting their fastest laps of the car. So the P2 car is certainly pushing as hard as they can. John.
Yeah, Stefan Sarazan's running out of patience with Roman Rusinov, stuck his nose up the inside at 13 and now tries to go around the inside at 14 and basically scares Rusinov into backing out of the throttle. That was a very, very robust manoeuvre, absolutely fair by Sarazan, but you could see he was losing his patience there as Alex Wirtz, without helmet but with his suit done up, paces across purposefully from the pit lane wall back to the pit lane. Into the aforementioned pit lane comes Andrea Bellicchi in the 13 Lola Rebellion B1260 Coupe. Hops weeks again for the team, of course. Karen Chandok is the beneficiary of that and goes up into 5th position overall, and that of course is 3rd in class. That goes into 6th position overall and 3rd in class. As a new set of Michelins are bolted on.
Just going back to what Graham was saying about the progress of the Aston Martin closing in on Giancarlo Fisichella, number 97, in the hands of Darren Turner, closing in on number 51 Fisichella. We're going to have Fisichella in the pits, I think, before Darren has a chance to make his move. Fisichella due in within the next 5 minutes, so he's going to kind of fizzle out rather before Darren Turner has his chance.
Yes. Now that is still quite interesting though, Paul, because those GTE cars, stops wise, is that going to equal out before the end, or do you think the Aston, or indeed anyone else, is going to be able to save a stop and gain an advantage?
I don't think it'll make enough of a difference. The only thing it will do is it will mean that the last stop for the Aston Martin will be slightly shorter.
Yes.
But it won't let them save a stop.
By dint of the fact they're putting less fuel in to get to the end.
Precisely so. But because the gap is over half a minute, it's not going to make enough of a difference at this rate. And in any case, the real challenge to the Aston Martin is well, I say the challenge, depends whether you're interested in finishing first or second. The Aston Martin really has had to wave goodbye to finishing first in the class because of the very, very good performance of the Porsche, which was frankly disappointing with its tyre wear at Bahrain, wasn't it? But this time they've done a lot better.
Alex Wirtz is down in the pit lane. He worked purposefully towards Louise Beckett and didn't speak to us now.
Alex, it's been a dominant performance by the Toyota. You must be satisfied so far.
Well, I've seen a few things we can do better, and I'm a very critical person, but at the moment the race looks good. Obviously the pressure on the Audi guys helped us because they had 2 collisions, so it's a very hot race, and don't forget we have 1 pit stop more to do, so it's far from over.
Are you going to be back in the car?
We're just discussing if Katsuk does a triple stint because he's in good shape, he knows the track well. It's his decision, otherwise I jump in, which I'm also very happy to do.
And we're looking at these black clouds ahead. What do you think if it does rain?
Oh, I don't think. I just come as it. I take it as it comes. If it's raining, well, then it's raining, and we see what it is.
Thank you.
Love his attitude. The blue on the radar screen, moving quite quickly. I think it looks like it's skirting the area of the racetrack, Graham, so I think we're going to get away with this. And Alex making a very good point there, Graham, that there is 1 more stop to do for that Toyota than the Audis.
Yeah, but I think we've seen the pendulum swing, what, twice, 3 times already? We've still got, well, better an hour and a half remaining in this race. How many times, John, have we got back into the kind of at the end of the final hour, and one of these races has thrown something else at us? This has just got all the feeling of another a race that will do exactly that again.
Just seen another incident there where Nakajima goes down the inside of the 24 Oka car, which has got Olivier Pla in, I think luckily for Kaz, because Pla turns in, and because Kaz Nakajima's coming from the rear right 3/4, he can't see him, he's not in the peripheral vision until he's committed to the apex of the corner. Unfortunately, being Pla turned out of it and there was no contact. But again, Paul, it's just one of those manoeuvres that you understand why they want to do it, because they don't want to get stuck behind the P2 car down the hill, but you're putting so much on the line when you make that move.
But it's the way of things, isn't it? It's the way of these races. I mean, you can lose a couple of seconds once, but if you kind of get into the habit, if you get into that mental state of losing a couple of seconds, and then you lose another couple of seconds, and then you lose another couple of seconds.
That's a very good point.
Then it's a mental approach, and we've seen it so often where a car arrives behind a slower car and then seems to get stuck there.
Yes.
Another car then arrives and goes straight past, and you sort of think, well, and it's all to do with mental approach, and I think that's what's going on there. You've got Kazu Nakajima, he's driving a Toyota, he's started from pole position, he's in Japan, it's a world championship race. It's a big deal, and it's important for him to make something of it.
Worth saying, guys, that Kaz was only the second ever pole position setter, a Japanese pole position setter in a World Championship race of any description.
Really?
The FIA World Championship race, absolutely. Only done once before, 1987, by Gawa here in Nissan in the World Sports Prototype Championship. But history for Kaz Nakajima here, and that's significant in terms of what the WEC and what Toyota and what lots of other people are trying to build here with endurance racing in this market, not just for the WEC, but for the Asian Le Mans Series to come.
Kyle Hall, who's at Kyle_Hall 1844, he says, can somebody look up the Guinness Book of World Records for people waving flags for the longest time by the largest group of people? It's a fair point, Kyle, that every time we see the start-finish straight, there are a whole gaggle of excited supporters. There's an awful lot of blue and white in there, blue and white caps I noticed, so there's I presume, in fact no, I know, because Danny Chen was talking about it, there's an awful lot of Toyota employees there.
Yeah, no, I can quite imagine that. I would hazard a guess that the record for flag waving must be at Le Mans. And I'm thinking back to the mid-90s when there was a Nissan NSX.
Yes.
And across the way from the pits, throughout the race, there was, as far as I know, there was one chap waving one flag. They may have had some kind of rotor going with it, but that flag waved throughout, and that car spent a good deal of time in the pits. But nevertheless, that
so the flag travelled further than the car did.
Yes, probably.
One brief correction. I was actually going to give exactly the same example, Paul. It was certainly Nissan. Those same guys were there throughout the Nissan campaigns of the late 90s. Wasn't a Nissan NSX though, that's a Honda. Meantime, guys, we've got potential drama in GTE Am, because we've just had a message up on the screens here to say that car 50 must have both headlamps working. That is the lead car at the moment in GTE Am.
Not again. Unbelievable. Into the pit lane from second in class comes the Aston Martin, and Darren Turner at the wheel of that car will hand off to, well, I say that, there's no hurry to get anybody out of the car. So this is double stint.
And whilst Darren is doing his marathon man bit, so we've got Ricard Leeds still behind the wheel of the number 77 car, and I've got a feeling that that car has stayed out a little bit longer this time, although it did stay out one lap longer last time around, or last scheduled pit stop as well, didn't it? Leeds then still leading that class by a comfortable half minute over the Aston Martin and AF Corsa Ferrari, and it always seems to be the AF Corsa Ferrari which just seems to get back out just before the Aston Martin does. The screen showing that on the split at the moment.
Oh, it's going to be tight.
As
no,
one comes
the
across
Ferrari
the line,
goes, yeah.
And it stays being about 10-15 seconds of a gap. The Aston Martin comes out of the pits, and the pit time given for yes, Darren Turner staying behind the wheel, 1 minute and 24 seconds for the Aston.
Victor, 1 second there on the pit stop, but it was the fastest lap of the race for the 51 car, 141.194 for Jimmy Bruni.
Really?
So he knows what it's all about. But just want to just before we forget the efforts of the car ahead in that class, it's been a pretty faultless race, aside from the fact that they seem to be a magnet for other people's trouble for the 77 car. It's great to see them back on form. We've had lots of kind of long faces of Feldmeier Proton throughout the season, but hopefully we might actually get to see a smiling Mark Lieb at the end of this race. I forgot what that looks like, and it's a nice thing to see.
I do have a question about that, because remember when McNish and that car came together? Sorry, it wasn't McNish, was it? It was the other Audi, the number 1 Audi. No, it was McNish. Sorry, I am getting tired. Anyway, when the Audi and that car came together, they were battling for the lead in GTE with the Ferrari, and since then they've cleared off. Now the Ferrari hasn't had a problem as such, Paul, the 51 car. The 77 Porsche has just gone longer and had a very, very decent pace indeed as it comes into the pit lane now from the lead of GTE.
without wanting to compare drivers, I think the difference has been Giancarlo Fisichella.
Yeah, and not in a positive way.
Because although Bruni can certainly match the lap times, Jimmy doesn't quite, Fisichella doesn't quite get there, and so I think that's been the main difference, and it's not been a massive difference. You know, we're only talking something under 30 seconds, so it's a close run thing as the Porsche pit stop continues.
It looks like they're going to put some fluid into that car as well. I thought I detected a slight limp from the driver as they got out there. The problem is, of course, for Fizzy, and again, this is not personal, I'm just telling it like it is, there are a lot of people who are ready to jump in his shoes. A lot of drivers currently working for Ferrari, some who currently aren't working for Ferrari, but I can think of one who lives around the corner from here, and that would be Matt Griffin, who would love to get a full-time drive in the WEC.
I think I agree with you, John. The one disadvantage that Matt's actually got is he's not Giancarlo Fisichella, and what do I mean by that? I mean, as I look to the left out through the window, there are lots of people here who've come to see Giancarlo Fisichella.
No, absolutely.
And that's nothing against Matt whatsoever. He can't help being Matt Griffin, or more particularly, he certainly can't help not being Giancarlo Fisichella. The other thing I'd like to make a point about with GTE that certainly has improved since the early phases of the race is that the Porsche has found better grip, and that certainly helps with not just the lap times but the consistency with which both Richard Leitz and Mark Lieb have actually been able to perform in the middle part, now the latter part of the race.
Let's just underline, by the way, Simon Hawkins at Plantman300 has tweeted at Specutainment. Let's just underline, while we're talking about the GT Pro, Darren Turner is double stinting, and I reckon that means he's going to do 2.5 stints actually. Graham?
Trouble, John. Trouble. There looked like there's contact there between the number 1 Audi and the 22 JRM. HPD. It looked to me like, yes indeed, it was contact to the right hand side of the Audis it took. The apex return there, it sent Karen Chandok off the circuit briefly, rejoined. Both cars have rejoined, appear not to be too far delayed at the moment. Let's see how that one winds out. But that incident under investigation, it goes on, doesn't it?
Yes, it really does.
And it always seems to be an Audi that's involved in it for one reason or another. The Toyota still being able to keep its nose clean, although I was about to mention that Nakajima not lapping as quickly as the Audis. I was suggesting earlier on that gap was coming down and that the Audi were about to possibly lose a lap to the Toyota. Well, it's the gap has come down from 1 minute 18 down to 1 minute and 4 seconds now between the first two cars. So Lotterer and Christensen increasingly unlikely to be lapped, and of course Nakajima's going to be the next one to come in for his pit stop, either to hand over to Alexander Wurz or not, depending how he feels, but in any case to get a new set of tyres, because that car will need tyres at its next stop, which should be at around about lap 190, which is in 6 laps time.
It hasn't got much. Sorry, Grim, go ahead.
Sorry, you've got a developing battle here, John, for 4th in LMP2, but that's because Olivier Pla is the next man to close in on the slower driver ahead of him, Kevin Weider, who did lead the class, of course, not so very long ago. He's now down to 4th in class, behind John Martin and Stefan Sarrazin and Pierre Caffer. Those three separated by less than 40 seconds. Weider, though, is being reeled in at a rate of knots, unsurprisingly, by Olivier Pla.
Yeah, he's got him in sight.
Yeah, target acquired, as I say. I think he's going to be through before, possibly before we get to the end of this lap, and certainly I think as we get along the start-finish train for the completion of their lap 173, I think it is.
He's got to get past Kiko Ihara first of all, who is a couple of laps back, but Kudos has been lapping consistently. I've been watching the times. 1 or 2 people have pointed that out on the social media. Here comes Olivier Pla, goes to the right hand side of Kiko as they go around into where is that? That was through into the 100R, I think. It's a very tight shot. No, in fact, it was the end of the lap, excuse me. 13, 14, 15 and 16. And that means that Olivier Plat clips onto the back of the black and gold machine, pulls out the driver's right. He's already alongside, ekes the nose ahead just a little bit. He'll be scored ahead at the line. Now it's maybe 3/4 of a length. Now spreads it to a length. Now there's a bit of air between them, and very cleverly uses the Felbermeyer Porsche. Of course it's the Felbermeyer Porsche to hold that Cordova Coupe on the inside and not allow them to drop back into the slipstream.
Well, be interested to see at the end of this lap, John. We've got Kevin Weider there in the Lola Judd, the Lotus LMP2 car, the 32 car, just ahead of Keiko Ihara, and the same chassis, different engine, the Nissan engine. And let's face it, we've got two of the, probably not the quickest two drivers on the track here, but we'll be interested to see if they can hold position here, just what you get in terms of difference in ponies down that main straight between those two engines.
Well, I'll tell you this, Keiko Ihara is trying to get a lap back here, and he's driving very tidily indeed, and you know, let's give credit where it's due, Graham. Early part of the season, the 29, in fact both the Gulf Racing cars then were not exactly covering themselves in glory, he says diplomatically.
A master of understatement there, John.
It has to be said that in the last couple or three races they have got much better, to the point where there have been several hours of the races where we've not mentioned them at all, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that they've done nothing wrong. They haven't fallen off the track, there's been no spinning, there's been no driving the wrong way up the track, getting into the people's way, etc, etc. And I'm not going to say that's a huge leap forward, but clearly some lessons have been learned, and I'm quite prepared to say well done to them, and keep up the good work.
I agree. I think the team have got their head a bit more around the car. It's clearly pretty complex. It's more complex than the team have run before, and for that matter, you know, Keiko in particular has managed to actually keep the car on the island rather more than she was managing in the first couple of races of the season. Her pace has not been spectacular, neither has it been tragically awful, and she's learned, I think, a lot more about how to position the car, which was one of the bigger problems at the start of the season. This has been a good growing debate in LMP2. We're talking about the kind of driver classifications. We tend to focus in on, you know, should Alex Brundle have been silver, blah blah blah. Well, the reality here is there's a lot too to talk about here about bronze drivers too. An important part of the package. The one thing you can say, by the way, about a bronze driver is not allowed to drive an LMP1 car. That is within the regulations. So it's the less experienced drivers, probably the less able drivers for the most part as well, but they do have a valuable part to play, and should not be estimated the role they've played in the growth. 50% more cars and more teams in this category than there were just a couple of years ago.
It's one of those essential dichotomies of sports car racing that a lot of people who claim to like sports car racing and claim to be aficionados of the sport then criticise the sport for having so many wealthy gentlemen in it. Go back through the history of the sport, and the sport grew up with wealthy gentlemen, either buying and racing cars or buying cars for other people to race. Now, whether that was formula cars or sports cars, back in the day, it was probably split evenly between the two. It tends now, of course, with the way sports cars have developed and formula cars, and particularly Formula 1 has developed, that it has been just the sports car side of things where that still happens. Looking at some highlights on the screen of the last hour's worth of the race, or last couple of hours of the race. The two Audis driving into people at turn 10 deemed to be the highlights, certainly talking points.
Well, I think certainly just for another quick moment as we're watching the Toyota now bearing down on the number 2 Audi down the main straight again, the point about the gentlemen drivers and their contribution is very well made. Just look down the list of drivers we've got here this weekend, John, who would not be in a job as a professional driver were it not for the contribution that they're making. People like Johnny Kane, Danny Watts, Olivier Plat simply would not be here in racing were it not for the contribution financially and in sporting terms being made by the likes of Nick Leventis, Jacques Nicolet, etc. Anybody that decries the efforts of the gentleman driver in sports car racing, I'm here to tell you, face to face, any number of times it takes, you're wrong.
And that is one of the things about the GT rules that you have to be very, very careful about in designing a new GT category or tinkering with the GT rules. As somebody pointed out on Twitter earlier today, and I'm sorry, I can't remember who it was, and it's a long way back through the timeline, the success of the programs like the Blancpain are not necessarily down to the specification of the cars. It's down to the way that it attracts gentlemen drivers for a very fast-paced, short beginning to end weekend of racing. But there is a problem in the GT3 cars are becoming more and more expensive, £350,000 and above, as in comes the leader.
Yes, this is Kazuo Nakajima then coming in probably to hand over to Alexander Wurz. He's done a double stint, the tyres have done double stint, and they've held up better on this occasion than they have done on previous ones.
In the hands of someone who perhaps knows this circuit better than his teammates and would know how to apply power and which part of the track to be on.
Fair comment.
There's a big question mark at the end of that, but I'm rolling that ball in.
Yeah, fair comment. Comes in on 89 laps, so it was one lap early, 31 laps on the stint rather than 32, but Lapierre did a 31 lap stint, so he can point to that and say, well, he did it, why shouldn't I? One more stop will be required from the Toyota after this stop to get it to the flag. And of course one more stop is also required from both of the Audis, which are of course not in the pits at the moment, but we'll have to make one more stop, but that will then take them to the flag. So as the two leaders, Lotterer and Christensen, now go through across the start finishing line, take over first and second in the race, Alexander Wurz heads down the pit lane in third place. And the complexion of the race will change again, but the two Audis due in for their respective pit stops on or around lap 197, 198. So they've got another 8 laps to go before they have their stops. Whilst on the subject of other stops still to come, I've done a quick calculation, and all 3 of the leading GTE Pro runners are going to need to come in and do another stop before the end. Any
time now, I would. Well, it depends which way they want to do it, but you're getting into that window now, not far away, just on an hour, isn't it? Although they were a bit earlier than an hour actually here, interestingly enough.
Well, yeah, the Ferrari comes in a bit before an hour, the Porsche and the Aston Martin came in a little bit over an hour, so that's the kind of critical factor for those cars. But the important thing is that they're all 3 of them roughly on the same kind of schedule, and the only difference is going to be the length of the pit stop for all 3 of them. As once again we see Darren Turner closing in on Jimmy Bruni this time. So Darren, having been closing in on Giancarlo Fisichella, closing in on Jimmy Bruni as he comes through. A lap just completed from Bruni, and we'll see what Darren is able to do as he comes through. Closes the gap down to just 13 seconds. So 13 seconds is all that separates Jimmy Bruni in second place from Darren Turner in third place in GTE Pro.
Now the 13 car's going slowly.
That's at a spin, John. That's at a spin, and it's just about to lose the position actually, because that means Johnny Kane's right behind Harold Premat as they come down the drag strip, if you like, start-finish straight. Kane pulls out, driver's right, and has he got the ponies to go make that move? He's not. He's going to pull back in behind.
Yeah, that was turn 15, and again has another look down the inside going into turn 1. 2 goes at this. They're side by side as they turn in. The Strata car right up on the inside curb, the Rebellion right up on the outside curb, and Johnny Kane is not to be denied.
Well.
That was pretty forceful stuff, and that was a mistake, and again has gone a long way off that number 13 car, which is... who was in that, guys? That was Harold Premat.
That's Harold Premat. That's Harold Premat. Now, just a note, by the way, as things stand with 63 minutes left to run, if things stay the same as they are, it does mean that Rebellion will clinch the LMP1 Privateers title. It also means, I think, that that Starworks would clinch LMP2 because it would give them a 3-point advantage over the Pecan car, which means there'll be basically 26 points to the good.
Was going to be
with
strong
26.
here. They started in pole. We're entering the last hour of the race. What can you do?
Well, nothing a lot to do. Them pace is really strong. We are pushing, but they are quicker than us today. And I had a problem with the front locking. I flat spot the tires on the first run. The second one was a bit better, but difficult today to win. I think it's gonna be second place today is the maximum we can do.
But I'm sure you're happy with that, knowing that you've got the championship anyway.
Of course, yes. It's been a fantastic season. We won the last 4 races on the row. We won Le Mans and the championship. So it's great today, even second position. It's another great result. We have this race to do, and then last race in a couple of weeks in China. We'll try to do the best there.
How tricky is this circuit here at Fuji?
Sorry?
How difficult is the circuit here at Fuji?
It's a difficult circuit, especially the last part of the circuit. It's very twisty. You need a lot of traction, good speed, and a good car, obviously. Today Porsche was stronger, so that's all.
Thank you.
Giancarlo Fisichella with Louise Beckett down in the pit lane, having just got out of the number 51 Ferrari, and just not had the pace today, Giancarlo. Not the 458 hasn't had the pace, at least in his hands, and we're talking about such small margins. That's the thing when you've and there is the leader right off the circuit, and that was coming through turn number 5. That's the 100R into the Advan corners, and that was a long way off, and the Toyota supporters out on the circuit are giving that car a good look as it goes by. Given that everybody is driving so close to flat out now, at the sharp end of any of the classes, Paul, really you can't afford to be a couple of tenths or more off the pace.
No, that's right. The other thing that kind of sprang to mind as Giancarlo was saying that, I'd had a conversation with Malcolm Cracknell actually in the week leading up to this race about whether or not the Porsche should be given a performance break, because Bahrain was very much a battle between Aston Martin and Ferrari. And as a result of the various things that have gone on in GTE Pro this year, there's been various little adjustments made as the season has progressed. And my feeling is that, a bit like the Toyota wheel arch extensions or extra wings, it's far better to leave the rules as they are and let people get on with them, rather than always just tweaking here and there, because otherwise you get to the situation where, in effect, what you're doing to the World Championship is putting success ballast, or success handicapping into it. And whilst you do that at the beginning of the season, I don't think it's the right thing to do during the course of the season, to keep changing it.
And isn't one of the things we love about this sport, certainly one of the things I love about the sport, is that not all the cars have the same strengths and weaknesses. So as you say, you go to Bahrain, it's hot, you can't get any grip, the car's burning too much fuel, you're coming in 3, 4 and 5 laps ahead of everybody else. You come here, you've got the most frugal car, and you're getting better mileage, and you're getting grip because the engine's hanging out over the back wheels. Well, you know, that is the absolute definition, if you like, of sports car racing, where one week you're the week you're the fly, the next week you're the windshield.
Yeah, quite, yeah, something like that. 0 to 0. A black and orange flag, which is required pit stop for headlights. Number 32, it's the other Coadriver Lotus Coupe, the LMP2 Lotus Coupe, which is the Kevin Weeder car, which has been pinged already for having a front left headlamp not working.
5th position, that car.
And it's now got to come into the pits to have that rectified. That's the
guys. The other
32.
the other guy that was pinged earlier for one operational headlamp, which was the 50 car, the GTM leader, of course. So potentially quite significant there. They seem to have just lit everything on the front of that car, so there are lights on both corners. So you've got fog lamps, you've got one headlamp on main beam, one on dip beam. So they should be okay. They have, as Paul observed, about a lap to the good over the 88 car, where to really keep that championship battle, nice and lit up, it really needed the other way around. We're going to clinch it here. That is one title that will go down if things stay the same they are to the final round.
Here's a pauser for you, Paul. When is Tom Christensen due in next?
Lap 197.
All right, so 3 to go. Can he go to the end from there?
Yes.
Right. And when is Lotterer due in then?
Lap 198.
And he can obviously go to the end from there. And
yep.
Nakajima
will come in, well, it's up to him really, but he'll have to come in before the end. 222 is what I've got on the schedule here, is as long as he can stay out on the fuel that he's got aboard. The race, I suspect, will go to about 232.
Okay.
So he'll be 10 laps short of a full tank full.
Okay. Now at the moment, we have got that separation of the two Audis, Lotterer, Nakajima and Christensen, so it's Audi, Toyota, Audi, and that's exactly the way that the Audi crews will want it, no matter what anybody else is saying, because that gives them the biggest spread possible in points for the championship.
But to make the championship interesting to the final round, it would be better if it was t'other way round.
Okay, I'll give you that. We're inside the last hour, gents, and again we find ourselves talking about the last 56, 57 minutes, and other than the pain in my legs and my ankles and the undoubted tiredness and tension across the shoulders, I can't actually believe we've been racing for 5 hours, Graham, to be quite honest, and there's still plenty of questions to be answered. One or two of the crowd suffering from being up, I'm sure, very, very early and queuing to get in.
Yeah, I think that man we've just seen on TV can believe we've been going for 5 hours.
Yeah, absolutely.
But one quick question for Paul to ponder on. I think you said, Paul, earlier that you weren't convinced at this stage whether or not the 12 Rebellion might need an extra stop over and above the HPDs. Be keen to find out if that's still the case, because Karen Chandok at the moment is making inroads. It's the advantage that Neil Yarney had, albeit he's still just over a minute behind. But I think that's something that's potentially up for grabs if there's still a pit stop to play with. P2 at the moment, the top four beginning to kind of compress. 54 seconds at the moment between the rather tasty sounding quartet of John Martin leading from Stefan Sarrazin, Pierre Caffa and Olivier Pla. That's still all to play for if any of those guys has anything like a hiccup.
Voice of Graham Goodwin, I'm John Hindhaugh, Paul Trustwell with us as well. We've had 5 hours of wonderful entertainment and debate here, not just what's going on the track, but trying to pick the bones out of the tactics. Started with the dash down to the first corner, where I think we saw 5 or 6 abreast going into turn number 1. Alex Wirtz using the supercapacitor power to pull away from the two Audis. Alan McNish got into second briefly, but then was beaten into turn 10 by his teammate, and things went from bad to worse for the Scotsman, because as they came through the GTE leaders, it looked as though the Porsche was going for the lead in GTE. Alan McNish tried to hit the gap, and then the door was closed very firmly indeed. Fortunately, it didn't really affect either of the races. Then a mistake by the leading Toyota that allowed the number 1 Audi through into the lead in P2. Wasn't all plain sailing, and that's in fact the Up P1 car just locking things up going down into the Dunlop the Dunlop chicane area. Then a most bizarre move where the Toyota seemed to be on the wrong pedal. The P2 battles have been fast and furious too, with Ryan DL getting back into the thick of it, and then more Audi self-destruct button. First of all, the number 1 car with the Aston Martin number 97, and that was deemed avoidable contact, and so stop and go penalty for the number 1 car, as Ryan DL continued to pick off the P2s. And then Alan McNish flashing his headlights. I've got room to go through. Ooh, no, I haven't, as he dived inside the number 44 Starworks car. Championship implications then for both of those vehicles, but no further action assessed. Then the pit stops, which had been giving us the to and fro at the head of the field, with typically the Audis changing tyres every stop, whereas the Toyota double stinting the tyres and only changing with the drivers. The Audi have gone through a bit of bodywork this weekend again. Not the first time we've said that this year. Or to have the carbon contract for fixing the noses for Audi. And again, oh, there's another one that I didn't see that one at the time. That was the 22.
That was the one that happened during the commercial break, wasn't it?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So that was another impatient Audi driver sticking it up the inside, and we've just had a pit stop for the number 1, Andre Lotterer. Didn't see whether he got in as we were going through the highlights there.
It was fuel only, John.
So that is that the first time that they've done a fuel only stop then, Audi?
It is. Yes, that's the first fuel only stop for any Audi. And 56 seconds is all it was. And the great thing there is, because we've had a drive-through, and it was a stop-and-go penalty, wasn't it, for that car, I can now tell you how long it takes to put fuel in, which I'll do later. And you can read about it on dailysportscar.com.
He says trailing ahead. That's fine. I have no problem with that. Don't forget, Wednesday night, 8 o'clock, radiolemans.com. Whilst we're looking at the TSO20, TSO 30, excuse me, I have still got the GT1 on the brain, having been to Cologne to see that excellent facility and the cars there. And let me tell you, there were some very, very tasty and unexpected visual delights in the shape of a variety of racing cars. Hear about it Wednesday night, 8 o'clock on radiolemans.com. Don't forget, in the last hour you can still tweet us at Specutainment or at Radio Le Mans, or indeed on the website, forum pages, www.radiolemans.com, as in comes Tom Christensen in the number 2 Audi, presumably right on tap, Paul.
Yes, he's completing lap 199. It's actually one extra. Tom Christensen's always doing one extra. Just seems to get a better fuel consumption, always has done. And so Christensen then doing 199 laps, and they will... they're taking a tear off the screen to clear Christensen's view. Fuel going into the car, and this will lose that car in second place, whilst Lotterer was in the pits having his fuel only stop. Nakajima has now gone through and taken the lead once again. As I say, Nakajima will need one further stop, and Lotterer and Christensen will be hoping that they'll be able to close the gap. At the moment, I don't think it's going to work for them unless something else happens.
Just having a look at the number 1 car coming in to the pit lane with the guys from Toyota and with the stopwatches out. Christensen and Lotterer now are on the same number of actual pit stops to have work done, because obviously Lotterer had to have that, or the number 1 car had to have that drive-through, so they've been in the pit lane 7 times, but only 6 times to have work done. So yep. Is that the real position of those 2 cars now, with the gap between them, whatever it is, when they come round next time around?
Yes, there's 40 seconds. When they come round next time, that'll be the gap between them, and they will then be able to go from here to the checkered flag. I say, the gap to what monitor is going to be Nakajima to Lotterer, and whether or not Nakajima is going to be able to get out in time before the Audi comes through, Lotterer comes through.
The second of the two Audis, that is. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. Graham?
It's a quite surprising announcement just had on the screen here, which is a contact between car 23 and car 6 at turn 1. It's particularly surprising because we haven't got a car 6.
Yeah, it was a really bad incident with car 9.
Yeah, absolutely. But 23's season goes from bad to worse. They appear, whichever the car was that was involved with the Signatech, Orica Nissan and 23 appear to have carried on. Got a brief yellow flag period there. We've got another yellow flag at turn 1 as I speak. And we'll watch as the Toyota powers down
down there, yeah.
Let's have a look and see what we can see.
Look at the PCOM car sitting in behind that there. Hardly lost any ground on the 7. And there's somebody off. Or is that a recovery vehicle? It might have been a recovery vehicle there. Jens Jensen has tweeted us at Specutainment. Did we hear no further action on the number 1 and the JRM, or just no decision yet? No further action, Jens, on that.
It's a good performance so
on
far.
the
What
1
can
and
you do to
22,
ensure
there was no
that you finish ahead of
decision.
the Audi
No
number
decision,
2?
excuse me.
Sorry, I didn't.
1 and 97.
What can you do to ensure you finish ahead of the Audi number 2?
2 and 97.
For the moment,
Yeah,
we are not fighting for that. You know, we just want to get the win.
Yes, it
we
was
are
2 and
pushing like
97,
hell from the
wasn't it?
beginning.
No,
And
so 1 and 97.
1 and
it was the
97.
2
we
and the
take some
44.
risks because we have to push
Sorry,
really hard for the
confused.
Toyota, and even more after
2
my
and 44
mistake.
was no further
But,
action.
that's a part of the race.
2 and 44 being Alan Nish with Ryan DL. The 1 and 22, which we only just saw there on the highlights package, was under investigation, and they then didn't tell us anything more about
I
it.
think we can do it, you know, if without a problem.
Meantime, in LMP2, guys, John Martin's brought the leading car into the pits. That drops back to third as a result, as we wait for the final pit stop cycle with LMP2 to wend its way round. That means Stefan Sarazan leads across the line next to him around, but he does so while he's down pit lane. So that will mean that Pierre Caffer, unless he pits this time around, will go ahead and take the lead.
Doing a bit of mental arithmetic there.
I really am using my fingers this time. No, what's worrying me is Nakajima, of course. I didn't highlight this before, but Alexander Wurz never got into the car. He was ready to do so, but he never actually got into the car. So Nakajima is on his triple stint now. Now, it is conceivable that he'll do a quadruple, and I was just checking to see whether he can on the time, and in fact, yes, he can. But it will be a monster 2 hours and 45 minutes if he does, because he got into the car at 3 hours and 14 minutes, so he got into the car just after half distance. Maximum driving time is 3 hours. So Nakajima could conceivably take the car to the checkered flag, and I guess it must be Toyota's intention so to do, because the car only needs fuel. It's already proved it can do a double stint on the tyres, and they did give him new tyres on his last stint. Does mean that Alex Wurz won't get to drive the car again, because Kazu, by saying, OK, I'll do a triple, in effect said he's going to take it to the flag, unless Toyota choose, and Kazu presumably decides that he's too tired to take it to the flag, and that then turns into a driver change. If it does turn into a driver change, fuel only change or stop, then of course it does give Audi a much bigger advantage, because at the moment they are teetering on the brink of being 30 seconds behind the Toyota. So having thought that the race was swinging towards Toyota, in fact, the balance is very, very close, because the safety car helped Audi and enabled them to go through with just 6 pit stops. Although, again, a stop-and-go penalty, the pace of Toyota hasn't quite been enough to compensate for its additional fuel consumption.
Yeah.
And guys, there's another significant aspect of the pit stops currently underway that's just been noticed by Mark Howson to my left, which is Stefan Sarazan emerges from the pits, having taken 13 seconds less in the pits than John Martin ahead of him.
Wow.
Which means that the gap between the two of them is now down to 3.7 seconds for what will become the lead battle in LMP2, because Pierre Caffer is down pit lane.
Okay. that's worth watching as well.
And the other question that you posed a little while ago, Graham, about number of pit stops required for Rebellion and JRM, both will require the same number of stops and one more for both of them.
It's a real gap then. We've just seen Nicola Prost in fact emerge from the pits in that 4th position, so that will wind its way through. We've got Johnny Kane on pit lane at the moment in the 6th place, now 7th place as Harold Premat takes the place, but will need to pit 2. So that's beginning to wind its way out. But the one that the class battle at the moment that looks like resolving itself most quickly is going to be the LMP2 battle. John Martin has responded at 133.481 as we get a black and white flag for car 22 for the contact with car 1. That's the answer to your listener's query from just a few minutes ago, John.
I was just about to say the number 1 car has got back ahead of Tom Christensen, of course, but that was because Tom took that pit stop. Yes. So what I was saying, what I didn't realise was when I saw that the 2 car had 6 times in the pit, that my timing screen hadn't yet updated and put him back behind the number 1 car, because I was thinking, that's interesting. Yeah. So okay, that now makes far more sense to me, my little adult brain.
Yes, the number 2 car lost out significantly in the very early stages of the race and has never been able to gain back that time that it lost in the very early stages. Let's say the battle now really on between the imaginary Toyota after its pit stop, which is what Andre Lotterer must be looking at.
Yes.
He's looking at a 33-second gap at the moment, but that will come down. I don't think by as much as 33 seconds. I think 33.
Sorry,
go ahead, Graham.
We've got Trauma in the pits, the Pecom car, which of course is the championship challenger against our Works, caught fire in the pit stop, is still on pit lane. So that challenge is in the garage. That challenge appears to be over. So that will mean, if things stayed as they are, that Star Works will clinch that LMP2 title here. So didn't see it from here, we didn't see it on camera, but there was a fire for the Pecom car at that pit stop, and that car has been pushed into the garage.
Okay, thank you, Graham. Well done to Mark Howson as well, who's spotting for us, the dailysportscar.com UK editor. That was Graham Goodwin, John Hindhaugh and Paul Truswell, and there is the Pecom car in the garage. They're working on the passenger side, which is where the electrics are, and they've got the rear deck off as well, and looking at the garage at the back of the engine, that looks like it's only been a flash fire, but I'm getting the feeling that the dashboard is not lighting up properly, so that is another one of those horrible electrical problems.
It's a terrible look for them at the end of what's been a great... You know what? We've been saying all season, haven't we, guys? We wanted to see a close battle in LMP2, and we've had it here. It's been absolutely fantastic, right down through the not just the top of the field, but the middle of the field as well. Incident involving cars 32 and 26 under investigation. Meanwhile, not one we've seen here, but another incident under investigation. They've been busy, haven't they, Shea Freitas?
They've had more investigations than the Jimmy Savile inquiry. That's amazing. As the number 1 Audi continues to circulate, and
rather actually the 49 car comes out indeed.
Well done.
From my right here, that you're quite right about that comparison with the trials of the BBC. It wasn't an appropriate touch.
There you go, very good. Nice pick up there, that very good. There is the number 1 car, still with the full beam on, keeping the left hand side left bank of headlights on. It should have 2 banks of those bright lights on, but they've managed to keep that on full beam all the way through. Well done to them, save them changing another nose. The Morgan Nissan of Olivier Pla there. Where is the number 1? Where's the number 7? There is Kaz Nakajima in the hybrid, the TS030. And that car, I've got to say, Paul, that car with Nakajima at the wheel has looked a different beast, particularly in the second half of the second stint. It's looked far more planted, the car hasn't been moving around so much, and his lap times have been very good indeed.
Absolutely, yes. I mean, must put it down to Nakajima. I was just getting up the weather situation. The track temperature is still holding up, as you suggested a while ago, John. 19.4 is the track temperature. The air has dropped down now to 16 degrees C is the air temperature. So that dropped a little bit, but it hasn't really got any colder in the last 2 hours by very much. Maybe a degree down now from 16.8 where it was 2 hours ago. But so Nakajima is being consistent. He's being clean in the traffic, and his lap times are regularly underneath 129. His last lap time of 128.798. The lap times that he does when he hits traffic, possibly a little bit slower than the Audi guys, but the quick ones, when he is clear, are very, very quick indeed, and that is good driving from Nakajima. As I say, I'm just at the moment he's able to, he's opening up the gap between himself and Lotterer, who is now practically 40 seconds up the road behind in second place. Wow. So he's opening up the gap and therefore giving himself more of a cushion for that final splash and dash that he needs, assuming that he's going to do the hero stint and drive for 2 hours and 3/4 all the way to the flag,
which is just under the 3 hour maximum, isn't it?
Which is perfect timing. Yeah,
absolutely.
Just one quick update, John. We've got another incident under investigation, unless it's just possible this is a misprint on the first one, because the second incident we've just got under investigation, still another one involving 32, but this time 29 under investigation. So unless we've actually had Tony Aluizzi pinballing off half of the LMT2 field, it was possible that we've had just one incident that it was a misprint on screen the first time. The moment incident involving cars 32 and 26 hit the screens at 16:19, and 2 minutes later we got, and it's a black and orange flag, John, for 50 for headlights.
Oh, you are kidding me. What have Labra got to do to win a race?
Well, it's a matter of how quickly can they get that car out. So they have got a full lap advantage. They shouldn't have had to pit again before the end of this race, we don't think. And that car is going to be coming down pit lane sooner rather than later. That means that Christian Ried is going to make up the better part. It's a bit more than a lap, actually, for Christian to actually take the lead, go ahead of the Labra car. He's now behind Nick Jonsson, who has climbed up to second in class, but I think owes us a pit stop aboard the Chrome Ferrari. It could be that the 88 car does what it's done more often than not this season and takes this win.
Well, here's the thing though, this is a GT car. This is not take off a nose and slot another one on with snap connectors.
Nope.
They've got headlights, and you know that might be something as simple as a connector or a fuse. It might be something as complicated as having to replace part of, or the most part of, a leg of the wiring loom, as in from 6th position overall comes Harold Premat in the number 13 Rebellion Toyota, the Lola Coupe, and this could very well be 35 minutes away from the Privateers World Championship for Bart Hayden, for Rebellion, for Team Rebellion, and of course for Lola. We'll be going down to the pits in just a second, and it's Pierre Caffer who is waiting for us, having just got out of that PCOM car that had the flash fire. Louise is on the scene.
Yeah, can you explain what was the problem there?
Yeah, unfortunately, in our last pit stop, we get some fire in the car. It was an electrician problem. Finally, the car didn't start again, so we had to fix this problem before we could go out again. Unfortunately, we lost some positions, but anyway, it was a good race, and PCOM did an awesome job again. All the pit stops were nice, and my teammates drive really, really well, and I think we were in a good position, and there was a chance of the podium, so now we need to try it in Shanghai again.
Thank you.
Yeah. Not the first. No, they're running a what? They're running the Oregon Nissan. Yeah. The P2 cars, generally speaking, have been a lot more reliable than I remember them, and they have been quick. But there has been if it has been a problem, it's been niggly electrical ones. We had that starter motor issue for was that the stop?
23
for the
number 23 car.
Yeah, that's which is strangely enough an Hurricane Nissan.
Yeah, well, oddly enough, you know, we had that it was a 5-minute 4-second pit stop. We'll take off a minute and a half of that for a regular pit stop anyway. It's a pretty remarkable job for the team for what the PS just described as an electrical fire in the cockpit to actually get damage fixed and get the car back out. That's absolutely incredible. 3 minutes to presumably source and replace whatever part the loom or the electrics or the electronics needed to be replaced. That's pretty darn good going. And what it's done is it's put Nick Manassian back out in 5th place. That is not going to be enough to keep this championship alive. And what have we got here on the screen at the moment, John? We've got the Toyota going by the number 2 Audi on the road.
And why is that significant? Because they are putting a full lap of the 2.84 mile circuit on the number 2 car, except they're not, because the difference is that the Toyota gets its horsepower coming out of the corner straight away. The Audi takes a wee bit longer.
But no.
Oh, you're kidding me! Under braking themselves into the first corner, and after fighting back nicely, Tom Christensen basically wraps up the place on the road and gives position to the Toyota and falls off the lead lap. So the Toyota has lapped up everyone now up into 3rd position.
I think there's something that's not quite square with that Audi number 2, because it's just not quite lapping at the same pace, or it's that they can't get the tyres to work as well. We've seen them. In fact, this was did Christensen? I've confused myself. Christensen on his last stop. It was a tyres only stop, wasn't it? Sorry, a fuel only stop on Christensen's last stop. So both Christensen and Andre Lotterer are suffering now with these this tyre wear, having made the decision to keep the cars on the same set of tyres for the second stint. It just seems that it's not as quick as Kazuya Nakajima, who, remember, did get a fresh set of tyres on his last stop. So
no, he didn't.
Yes, he did on the last stop, because he went for a triple. So they gave him. They kept him on the same set of tyres for his first stint. Now he's on to a triple. So he gets a new set of tyres for that. But he's got, as I say, what is now an increasing margin. It was 30 seconds. It's now up to 40 seconds plus, and now significantly a lap on Tom Christensen in 3rd place.
I've got to tell you, the 50 car has got a headlight on the left-hand side. It's not overly bright, but it's there, Graham.
I'm pretty certain it's had it all the way through, not just the fog lamps, but there is a headlamp showing. So I'm not quite sure what this is actually about for the black and orange flag, unless it's got an intermittent fault, and we're not seeing that. But I did ask Mark to have a quick look out the window and see what we're seeing coming by, and it most certainly has got headlamps in both corners there, hasn't it?
It's not the brightest, and it's certainly not the full beam that's being shown in the other one, but there is a lamp shining in that headlamp cluster, and I would think that Jacques Lecomte at the moment will be saying, have a look at these pictures, guys, we've got headlights.
Yeah, it's the curb light, isn't it? It's the one that points at the curb rather than pointing straight ahead. The problem that I see him facing is that once you're shown a black and orange flag, that's not like a driver warning flag where it's an advisory. The black and orange flag is a mandatory thing, which says you have to come into the pits to have the fault investigated. If all you do is
Surely, Paul, we cannot get to the stage where the same car is disqualified from a race win 3 times in a season. That would be just madness.
Absolutely. What he needs to do is to come into the pit stop and then go again, and he won't lose the place. If he has an argument about it, then he might get disqualified.
Simon Hawkins at Plantman 300 says, this is not a nightly race. Why do we need a headlamp fixing? Because it's in the regulations that the cars must show 2 front lights and 2 the headlights rather, and 2 tail lights throughout the race. Anytime that you're on the track,
in practice and qualifying as well.
Yes, absolutely. Every time that you're on the track, yes. And what you'll see is that all of these guys have multiple lights within the clusters at the front. One of the reasons Audi like the LEDs so much is you can lose one of the LEDs and still have the rest of them on to fulfill the regulations. It's it's like construction and use regs, Simon.
It's absolutely, and then the other thing to say about any kind of headlamp is it performs two functions. It helps you to see in conditions where it's darker. It helps you to be seen. I think that's more the point here. It's exactly the same kind of basis on which we saw so many cars pinged in Bahrain for the light panels on the side.
Yeah.
It helps the trackside marshals to actually spot which car might be involved in which incident, and it may be a more recent regulation to do with newer technology that's been available for racing, but that doesn't make it any less black and white as to what's in the rule book.
At PhotoPig, Matt Big says, how has the Audi No.2 managed to lose the lap to the Toyota in an hour? Well, in fairness, it was nearly 3/4 of a minute to a minute back anyway, so it's lost about a minute in the last hour, maybe just a wee bit more than that, but quite simply it's lost it because the Toyota has been quicker. And
it's gone from being 50 seconds to being a minute and 40 seconds. So yeah, it's lost another 50 seconds in the last hour and a bit, but it's pace, purely pace.
Martin Pass says we've got to stay at 35 seconds difference to have any chance when the Toyota comes in. I think he's right. And just one further thing, this from Alfred Wallace says, is it time for the spirit of the race yet? It's going to be a little difficult as it seems to have been a relatively trouble-free race so far. Yeah, well, we've got what we've got left, half an hour. It is time for me to remind my two co-commentators of the Robert Goodman Spirit of the Race Award, completely unofficial, but for the person or persons who we feel is deserving of being linked with the great Robert Goodman's name.
I would get the responsible adult to look up what Japanese is for Iron Man, because I think it might come out as Nakajima.
I think that certainly would be there on my shortlist. Let's not forget that pole position. I'm also minded to say, unfortunately, I don't know the names of the people involved here, but just the way in which this event has been run, it's been an absolute pleasure to be here this weekend.
Sorry, go on, Griff. There's the change of the rear bodywork on the GRM that we've been wondering about for a little while. So presumably that legality panel behind the rear wheels finally fell off. I'm gonna throw Darren Turner into that, guys, because every time he's got in the car, he's been absolutely stellar, and he's gone about his job with another Ironman stint at the end of this race that has been impressive, and staying in the GT ranks that we don't often recognise what's going on further down the field, but I think we've got to mention somebody or something in the Felbermeyer team, because once again they've quietly gone about their job in a car that was, let's be honest, unfancied before we got here and turned a wheel.
Fair point.
I think it's a good call. One other name or names I would chuck into the mix here, and we said before the race started, John, that this race mattered quite a lot to everybody at ADR Delta.
Yes.
Remembering Bob Graves this weekend, and they have driven a supremely confident race in what has been the closest LMP2 race of the season.
Call.
So I think everybody at ADR Delta deserves a hearty slap on the back. And you know what? Bob Graves himself, actually, in the contribution he's made, which is frankly one of the reasons why that team is actually here this weekend and through the WEC. Stop and go penalty, by the way, in the meantime, for car 32 for contact with car 26. And oddly enough, stop and go penalty for car 29 for contact with car 32.
So it was two separate incidents.
It was.
Fantastic. Well, there we are. There's a few thoughts, dear listener. Here's Eduardo.
Information to the pit wall.
Hang on a second.
Information to the pit wall. Stop and go penalty car 32 for causing a contact with car 26. Stewards decision number 10. Stop and go car 29 for causing a collision with car 32. Stewards decision number 11.
Thank you, Eduardo. So there you go, some ideas for the Robin Goodman Spirit of the Race Awards at Specutainment, at Radio Le Mans, or on the website make your feelings known, and we'll have a decision before the end of the race, which is now, Paul, what, 20 minutes away?
24 minutes away, yeah.
All right, a little bit more.
Darren Turner's effort is going to be 2.5 hours by the time he gets to the checkered flag, assuming that he takes it all the way to the checkered flag, which is entirely to be expected in the Aston Martin. Sadly, though, he's got still this 30-second gap that is between him and the number 51 AF Corsa Ferrari, which itself has a further 30-second gap to make up between itself and the Felbermeyer Porsche that we were crediting for a very good performance, and it has been a very good performance from the 77 Felbermeyer Porsche of Richard Lietz and Mark Lieb. And as I say, so just 1 minute separating the first three in that category. Similarly, just 1 minute separating the first three in P2 still, with the ADR car, the ADR Oreca Nissan leading the way from the Starworks car, number 25 leading number 44 by just 15 seconds. And then in third place in that class is the number 24, which is the Oak Morgan Nissan Olivier Pla, driving in car number 24, the car that he shared with Jacques Nicolet and Mathieu Lehay. And it has been a good race in LMP2. The gap between first and second, Martin Pass reckoned 30 seconds, 35 seconds. Well, 43 is just going to be too much, which is what it is at the moment. The car's currently on their 218th lap. As I said earlier on, I'm suggesting that Kazuo Nakajima with the Toyota will be in on or around lap 222, possibly a bit before, just for a splash of fuel. And they will be hoping that everything goes well with that, and I'm assuming that that's all they're going to do, because if they do anything more than that, in other words, if they try and put tyres on it, then I suspect they're going to be opening themselves up to be overtaken. If it's a fuel-only stop, because they don't need a full tank of fuel, it'll just be half a tank full, which they will take aboard in order to get the car through to the checkered flag. Then Nakajima will be able to come out of the pits with a lead intact, and provided he can then keep it out of trouble and keep it pointing in the right direction, they'll still have the lead through to the end of the race, which, as we were mentioning, just over 20 minutes away now.
Yeah, and it's a minute between Lotterer and Tom Christensen, 45 seconds. As Paul says, nearly 46 seconds now between Nakajima and Lotterer. And the guys at Toyota are beginning to believe this is a phenomenal program. You know, we've said this before, but don't look at this program and think cubic yen or cubic euros have been thrown at this, and that's no disrespect to anybody who spends big money on motorsport, but this has been done on a fraction of the normal budget that you would expect. They've still only got the one car for this season. They're working on their budgetary plans for next year to see if they can have two for the bulk of the season, and they are getting ready for this final pit stop. The win at Sao Paulo, I think, a bonus for them, but they really believed they could do something at Bahrain, and let me tell you, there was a sort of a feeling of mild euphoria but slight disappointment when I was there a couple of weekends ago that they hadn't managed to convert at Bahrain. And if they can pull this one off on their home ground, and there is the stop and go for the 32 Lola Coupe, if they can pull this one off on home ground, this is a massive news story in the papers tomorrow. Oh,
I mean, it'll be massive for the whole Japanese car industry.
Yes,
I mean, for Toyota in particular, but for the Japanese car industry in particular. What I think we perhaps shouldn't overlook in the victory, which is not going to take anything away from it, but it wouldn't have happened had the stop and go penalty not have been applied to Andre Lotterer's car, because that stop and go plus this extra pit stop would have cancelled each other out, and then we really would have a nose to tail battle on our hands. So it's a bit of an interesting one. Whereas at Silverstone, the stop and go penalty that Audi suffered meant that it could still win the race. This time it's going to cost it the race. So there you go. I mean, stop.
Leader in the pits, guys. Leader in the pits.
The blue and white flags are waving as the number 7 Denso sponsored Toyota TS030 comes into the pit lane. This looks like it's going to be a timed stop, and by that I mean they won't fill full of fuel. The Audi is coming out, the number 1 Audi is coming out of the Dunlop curves now. This is actually going to be a bit closer than I thought it was, gentlemen, because they'll be heading up through turns 14 and 15 now. Still the Toyota is waiting, and now it goes on hybrid power. It whirs away, and then the clutch kicks in. And the Audi is just coming round the final corner now and heading onto the start-finish straight, as the Toyota will emerge at the opposite end of the start-finish line. And with 18, nearly 19 minutes to go, it's going to be close, but not close enough to challenge right now for Audi. The question is, who's got it in the tank? And I'm not talking about fuel here, I'm talking, Graham, about stamina, because fatigue could play a part with either of these drivers here.
It could play a part with either of these drivers or anybody else they encounter on the way, John. That's probably the final factor here. It is getting darker here. It's not going to be full dark. Tired eyes, tired everything, and it's not over yet. This is it's 18 minutes, and the gap, as I look at the split, is 6.3 seconds.
Oh.
So 18 minutes remaining, 6.3 seconds the gap. But remember, endurance racing, you don't get close racing in this form.
Stop it! Stop saying that.
What's going to be crucial is how the tyres are going to wear now, because of course Nakajima is now on his second stint. Now it's a short stint, admittedly, but we have seen that the tyre wear does go off, or the tyre wear does increase. The performance goes off.
Oh my goodness me! The Toyota stuck in behind the number 24 Oak Racing car. And
big roars here in the press room as that happened, John. That's at least a second off that gap. It's down at the split to 6.018 seconds.
That was Olivier Pla. He was trying to get by as he was coming on the start-finish line. There seemed to be some concern as well there, guys, about whether they'd got enough fuel into that car, but it was sort of nodded and thumbs up. And from the onboard of the Audi, you can see how dark it is now, Paul, heading down towards turn number 1. And you know, television cameras, particularly HD cameras, make things look a lot brighter than they really are, and it's only going to take one tiny slip by a tired driver, and this could all change around yet, Paul.
Well, it's a race to the flag, isn't it?
Yes.
And it's down to pushing on and making a race of it. So, you know, we'll see how it pans out. What I found vaguely amusing was that
5.1 seconds, guys. 5.1 seconds at the end of that lap.
I'm sure that Olivier Pla, we'll see it here on the replay, after the Toyota eventually got past, Pla was flashing his lights at the Toyota, just to show. And there he goes. Look, he's flashing his lights as well. So, I mean, it was just like the ride I had up here when I came up here earlier on. I overtook a 4x4 and it decided it was going to flash its lights at me. I hadn't been rude enough to flash him, but anyway.
Yeah, it's those bright Audi headlights, you know, Paul. That's what it is. You know it is. So the split times coming through. The Toyota, going round the outside of the 55 Porsche in the final corner, and that again is not a big percentage move, and yet it's been pulled off by Nakajima, and that's just the sort of thing we're talking about. All it would have taken there is for the 55 car to stray offline, and offline at the moment is not just marbles, it's bricks of rubber on the start-finish line in particular. The headlights flashing. This is going to the flag, gentlemen, at the head of the field. In the classes, we've still got ADR Delta leading in P2 from Starworks. That's come down to about 19 seconds at the moment. And in the GT classes, it's still a 77 Porsche leading GT Pro, and GT Am now is being led by
Lava Competitions Corvette still.
Okay, thank you.
Has not made that stop, guys.
Of
it's
course.
5.4 seconds at the end of that lap, but it was Lottery that had the worst of the traffic in the first sector for their lap 223. Is that big lockup, or is that it's just lockup there?
No, that's
from Nick Manassian.
Yeah.
Yes.
There is a point on the track clearly as you go into turn number 10 there, where you unload both of the inside wheels in some way, shape or form. I'm wondering when we come back here next year, guys, if they might take that chicane out and run round the loop, because you have to brake hard enough for 13 anyway, and that turn 10 has caused a lot of problems today.
Gap is coming down again. Lotterer took a second out of Nakajima in the middle sector there, down to 5.1 seconds once again as they come back down the main straight now to complete the lap. 5.1 seconds is the gap, and I think it's going to be rather less than that.
As they come across the line.
It's exactly the same.
As they come across the line. Interestingly though, the onboard camera on the Audi there, Graham, had to be re-racked. It's got so dark, and by that you control the camera nowadays. Of course, you don't have a little cameraman sitting there playing with the iris and the focus. It's all done electronically, but it had to be redone because it's getting so dark, and the guys in the TV truck are working really hard to give us these pictures now, and well done to all of the MCA guys in the TV compound, doing a cracking job to make sure we're seeing these pictures.
It was Lotterer, though, held up through the final turn there, John, and actually that gap's gone up to 6.1 seconds, but he's pulled back another 10th in the first sector. We're getting now into the last 14 minutes, and it's still...
Just interestingly, you're describing the lap times, and there's very little to trade between the Audi and the Toyota. Just looking at the top speeds at the end of the start-finish straight, the Audi is a full 7 kilometers an hour faster down the top straight, down the start-finish straight, than the Toyota. 292 as opposed to 285, just on that last lap. So, you know, it's what John's been saying, you know, the different strengths and weaknesses of the two teams. These are not two identical cars racing against each other.
And in from second place, the 97 Aston Martin Vantage V8, Darren Turner couldn't make it to the end again, and this is the second time in 2 races that there's had to be a late stop for the Aston. The 97 car is in, they're looking at the left front tyre as well, the Michelin technician having a look now. Will he lose second place in class there, Paul?
Just looking down whether or not 51 is going to need another pit stop as well.
Paul Starbuck into the press conference as well.
We'll just take a look at that. No, of course, Bruni's already had his final stop, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Jimmy Bruni. So, no, that will lose him second place. He'll finish third in the class, which is where he's been throughout, really.
Once again, the Ferraris, despite the changes to the fuel tank, have gone better than the Aston, but it's been the Porsche today who's had the best of both of them.
Best of both worlds, isn't it, really, for
yes,
Porsche?
Absolutely. Speed and economy.
Best of both worlds at the moment as well gone to the Toyota, because that gap is now coming out 7.5 seconds, and that would be longer by the end of this lap, because Andre Lotterer was held up there behind Jimmy Bruni's Ferrari. The critical point of the corner is clear now of the 51 car, but he is going to lose a little bit more ground here to the charging Toyota.
Graham, just I thought the Toyota was coming back in the pits there, but just using the pit lane entry for some reason. Maybe it was cleaner all the way over there. Just to reiterate then, Graham, what championships can we tie up if the result stays they are? Presumably Rebellion get their World Championship and Starworks get theirs too?
Short of a double meteor strike at this stage, it's looking like Rebellion actually.
We are in the land of manga and horror, mate. You never know.
There you go. Absolutely. It also looks set fair for the car we're seeing on screen at the moment. The Starworks Motorsport car looks like bringing home the LMP2 title. We're not going to see quite yet the GTM title settle, which will be the final title that goes down to the wire in Shanghai.
If we manage to get all 27 cars home, it's only happened once before in the World Championship, and it was the last race of the old series in 1992 at Magny-Cours, the 500 kilometres. Now that had 8 starters and 8 finishes, so having 27 at the finishes is quite a milestone. It's only happened twice at comparable races. The 1998, one of the 1998 ALMS races had 19 starters, and the 1964 Copper Sitter de Enna had 8 starters and finishes. Thank you, Janos Wimpfen, for you guessed who that was from, for sending that in.
I hadn't actually guessed, but I'm not surprised. However, I'm not sure that number 31 is still circulating. So I've got a feeling that car might have stopped. I'm just checking back at the moment. But,
We've got two black and orange flags flying at the moment, guys. 155 for headlamps, and the other one for the ill-starred 32 Lotus to repair the rear of the car, it says here.
Okay.
I'm going to correct myself as well, because of course the other title that's up for grabs still is the World Drivers' Championship. That will go to the wire, although it swings once more.
So that won't
be crew from the one car.
Okay, so that won't be decided if it stands as it is at the moment. Well, gentlemen, we all nominated a few different potential recipients for the Robin Goodman Spirit of the Race Award, and I've got to say it's ADR Delta this weekend. So Graham, that was one of the ones you mentioned. Tell the story.
Well, the story is the car that this weekend is commemorating the life of Bob Graves. Bob sadly passed away just a few days ago. A hugely influential part of not just that team, but British Motorsport, I believe, founding of Cosworth. The car actually on its dorsal fin celebrates Bob's backing for the Pattaya orphanage in Thailand, and every year Bob would sponsor the most promising child from Thailand, bring them across and give them a better life back in the UK. Amongst other things he did during his motorsport life was to back the career of Robbie Kerr and many others. We'll be giving a full tribute to that life this weekend. He was Tor Graves' stepfather as well. Tor, one of the children who was sponsored by Bob during that, a fabulous and very worthy life. And we'd all like to be able to turn around at the end of our lives and say that we'd done that, wouldn't we? So well done to all of them. Well done to all of them. Will be tears in their eyes at the end of this race.
Yeah, it would have been the easy thing for them not to compete, but that would not have been Bob's way at all. And so ADR Delta, who look like they are heading to victory in LMP2 with John Martin behind the wheel of that R18 E-Tron Nissan, are the very worthy recipients of the completely unofficial Radio Le Mans Robin Goodman Award for the spirit of the event. We still have a race at the head of the field, gentlemen, although it is swinging. 7.5 minutes to go, but still only 8 seconds between first and second position. And given the elegant isolation that the number 7 car is in at the moment, it means they're going to hit a big clump of traffic anytime soon. Going to sheet of sand on the right hand side of that picture was one of the engineers from the TSO10 and the TSO20. He is a top bloke. He completely understands endurance racing, as you might imagine, having been completely immersed in the Toyota endurance and sports car racing programs going way back through the years. It's so dark now we can see the illuminated numbers on the side of the number 1 Audi, which continues to try and chase down Kaz Nakajima. Just bear with me 1 second, guys. Just think of this. This is a Japanese car with a Japanese driver on pole and the Japanese driver bringing it to the end at Fuji. This place is going to go wild in 6.5 minutes time if they bring this home.
Absolutely. What my fear is, John, is what you just mentioned, this clump of cars that is going to be around there somewhere, because inevitably as you get towards the end of a 6-hour race, there are little clumps of cars waiting for the leaders so that they can get in behind the leaders and not have to complete the extra lap. The trouble is that all of a sudden then the leader comes across this clump of cars and all of a sudden the 8 seconds, which has crept up to 9 since I started the sentence, will suddenly shrink to 2 or 3, and that's where Andre Lotterer is then going to be trying his best to spoil that fairy tale, that swan song of this result, which is so important for Toyota. If they were going to win one race this year, and I think at the beginning that was really all they were going to hope for, it would have been Fuji, and yet they've come into this season off the back of you said your words were toe in the water, an experimental season to see how it went, a data gathering season. And it's still there. It's the Toyota's just gone through again. Here comes the Audi in the middle of this little clump of cars, and the lap times are still phenomenally quick. We've got a 1:28.895 on that last lap from Kazu Nakajima. 1:28.895. Can you imagine 5 minutes from the end of a 6-hour race doing a lap within a second of your pole position time?
Yeah, that is remarkable. He has been a star, Nakajima. There's no doubt here. There's the progression from 8.1 to 10.9 in 3 laps. but Lotterer has got to keep pushing. And Lotterer is the type who's not just going to give this up. He will keep pushing, because there is every chance, like now, when there are 2 cars ahead of the leader, that he may get past one of them but not the other. The blue lights and the blue flags may be misconstrued by one or either of those cars to think, oh, that's for him, that's not for me, I'm going past this guy. And has he cleared them? Yes, he has. Nakajima is decisive through traffic in that number 7, and he's just got to keep this on the island, which he just does not there as he comes round turn number 14, getting right across to the edge of the track and dropping 2 of the Michelins off onto the red and white curbs and into that drainage ditch sort of bumper area that's in there, and that would have given him a real shake up. That might be a good thing, actually. He's got to pace himself but not ease off too much. It's a difficult thing to do, really is.
Thanks, mate.
And the blue and white flags are being waved in the grandstands opposite the media centre in the dark, the gathering gloom here, down towards 3.5 minutes. What, 2 more laps now for Kaz Nakajima, and it's over 10 seconds. Graham.
Yeah, a little more drama as well for the Pico Racing car. They've just been in and out, slow puncture on the front right. I'm afraid for that car, that's any vain hope they may have had of misfortunes for others, I think long gone now, but they've re-emerged and will still run 4th despite that stop. Looks like it's going Starworks' way. The other thing to ponder here is that the rate of progress we've seen for the Toyota Racing team is that we will go into the Shanghai race, John, with the Alex Wirtz and Nicolas Lapierre having every prospect of finishing 3rd in the Drivers' Championship title, despite the fact they've not actually competed in the first 2 races.
Yeah, that's very good indeed. I hadn't even clocked that one, Graham. 2:48 to, it might be 3 laps from here.
Yeah, well, it's 2 more.
2 more after this one.
End of this one, it's going to be. And Lotterer, you said he wasn't giving up. 129.899 on his last lap, compared to a 129.836 from Kazuya Nakajima. So these 2 are trading lap times, even at this late stage, John. Phenomenal driving from both of them. Obviously, the fans' favourite is Kazuya Nakajima. The fans'
There's a few Audi flags there as well.
I Toyota,
yeah.
But you know, Andre, he's been racing in Japan for a lot of his career. He'll be a well-known name amongst Japanese fans, and they'll be loving this. I mean, this is just a great race.
Feel the tension on the Toyota pit wall at the moment. People watching every split time, every piece of the television screen that he can. Now, there's an element of danger coming up as Nakajima comes up to Tom Christensen to put another lap on him, and let's hope TK does not get involved in this fight. The second Audi has been off the pace since that second incident, and I'm not sure, as I think Graham said earlier on, that car has been completely straight, but it is an element of danger here as Nakajima comes up, and Alex Wirtz knows exactly what the situation is. It is a team game. What game will be played by Audi in the number 2 car here? They have been both sides of this before when they were racing Peugeot at Le Mans, and Tom Christensen is an old hand. I'm sure he won't make it easy for Nakajima to go through, but it's going to be on the straight, so the supercapacitor will unleash its mighty burst of electrical energy, and he'll pull out the driver's left and go through, but Christensen will pick up the power once he gets over 120k and slots back in front of him. And the eyes get a little bit wider on Alex Wirtz on the pit wall, and there's just a bit of tension in the jaw there of the lanky Austrian as the final lap board goes out, and it's 12 seconds. It's 12 seconds, and Nakajima may not need to go past Tom Christensen here, Paul.
No, he doesn't need to, and I think it'll work for him very nicely indeed. So there he
Starworks pit. And the guys there getting ready to celebrate. Ryan DL back with the team after a race off for his Grand Am exploits, and we have got now less than 10 seconds on the clock and less than 2 miles to go, and Christensen just stays ahead of Nakajima, but he's not doing anything wrong here. He dragged back on the power, and Nakajima gives best and stays out of the way of all of the cars around him. He's got 3 more corners. He's already out of the troublesome chicane, and Nishita-san goes to the pit wall. The flags come out, the Toyota flags this time. It's not the 4 rings of Audi, it's the blue, white and red of Toyota and Denso. And lucky number 7 from pole to flag for Kaz Nakajima. What a story this is, and Toyota win the 6 hours of Fuji, and this place is about to go wild. And that applause you can hear is from the press room, and on the pit wall everyone has gone completely bonkers. Through in 2nd place goes Andre Lotterer. Tom Christensen will be scored in 3rd, although he'll have another lap to come round to finish that. Rebellion Racing will take the Privateers title, and Starworks, Peter Barron, take a bow, my man. I've known that lad for a long time. He's one of the nicest guys in motorsport, as is Bart Hayden. The good guys have really won big today here at the 6 hours of Fuji, and Kaz Nakajima, along with his teammates Nicolas Lapierre and Alex Wirtz, are in the early stages of very bad headaches tomorrow. Starworks have cracked up, and there's a rugby scrum. Oh, it's gone to a ruck. It's not even a maul now. It's a rugby tackle on the floor. And let's not forget the GT classes. What a faultless run by Felbermeyer, by Lieb and Leitz. They've got this 2012 car working. The weather worked for them today, the surface worked for them today, and their team car is lining up behind for the team photograph. But it will be Labra Competition who win the GT Arm, but it's the 77 Felbermeyer Porsche that wins GT Pro. What a fantastic 6 hours of racing at the Fuji Speedway. Absolutely remarkable. And remember, we've still got another 6 hours of racing to go in a couple of weeks' time for the final round of the FIA WEC in China. Mentioned the GT, the LMP2 winners, ADR Delta, as well as John Martin will bring that home. Paul Trustwell, what do you say after an event like that? You just can't write these scripts.
It's so intense, isn't it? And you know,
feel the emotion.
Absolutely, and you know, it's not a 24-hour race, okay, but you still have the sense of achievement for sticking with it for 6 hours. I mean, 6 hours is a long time to keep your concentration, to focus on what you're doing, and it makes it into a proper team effort. And not one of these guys, when you get to the end of this race, would you be able to talk to one of them and they would say, yeah, I did that. It would be all, we did that.
Yes.
Because in every single case, it's all about the team. Yes, Kazu Nakajima drove a stonking stint, but you know, between Alexander Wirtz and Nicolas Lapierre, they did their part, the team did their part, working out what the strategy was. Pascal Vasselon trying to work out whether to do the single stints, the double stints on the tyres. It all had to be done absolutely correctly. And you know, you get to the end of 6 hours and it's 11 seconds. I mean, it's that kind of a margin which makes this type of racing so significant somehow. It's important, it's good for the teams, it's good for manufacturers. And
11 seconds in 360 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, and hopefully, I mean, fantastic to see that we've had a big crowd here in Japan. You know, this will spark off a greater interest, and it will spark off other manufacturers saying, look, you know, if Toyota can do it on a budget, we don't have to spend a mint, we don't have to do it, you know, with the big budget, we can do it on a budget. You know, here you are, go away and work on it. And there should be other manufacturers out there who are saying, yep, we can do this.
Kaz Nakajima take a bow, and the local press will be having a field day. This is one of those times when you can say, hold the, well, back pages, certainly. There's been a Formula One race in this part of the world in the Asian continent this weekend. But here's the headline, and there's the pictures. Graham Goodwin, spontaneous applause that I haven't heard in a press room at one of these events before when the Toyota crossed the line.
Fabulous. It's a great moment to be here. It's been a fantastic event. That was a great race. You know what? If we can get to the stage where the FI World Endurance Championship has half a dozen races and events like this, then Formula One better look after its backside, because that was fantastic. There's a fan base here to be had behind that kind of entertainment, John. Fantastic performance from Toyota. Great race, finally a great race in LMP2 as well. Brilliant race from the Feldmeier Proton guys, despite the magnetic attraction to seemingly everybody else. And finally, it seems